I never thought a single knock could feel like the end of the world. It started just after midnight, the kind of hour when the streets outside are empty, the streetlights flicker, and the wind seems to whisper secrets you don't want to hear. I had been working the night shift at the call center for almost 3 years, and I thought I was used to quiet nights. But this was different. I was sitting at my small, cluttered desk, phone headset on, half listening to the background of the office computers while sipping lukewarm coffee. The building was silent except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. And then it came. Knock. Soft, deliberate, slow. 3 knocks. Knock. 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 I froze. At first, I told myself it was the wind, or maybe someone outside trying to prank me. I live on the 3rd floor, and the fire escape door was locked from the outside. Nobody should have been able to knock at my apartment. But the sound repeated, steady and patient. My stomach turned cold. I could feel it crawling through my veins, a slow, tightening fear I hadn't felt since I was a kid, and locked myself in my closet during the storm. I set my coffee down too quickly, the liquid sloshing over the edge of the mug. "Hello," I called, my voice shaking more than I expected. Silence. Only the faint buzz of the fridge and the low hum of the radiator answered me. I waited, holding my breath, hoping it was nothing. Then knock, 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 again. I jumped back, heart hammering. This time, I grabbed my phone from the desk, my fingers trembling as I dialed 911. Every instinct told me not to. Like some part of me already knew what I might see on the other side of the door. But the knocks didn't stop. They weren't impatient. They weren't hurried. They were deliberate and unending. The operator answered with the usual calm voice. 911, what's your emergency? I swallowed hard, my voice barely above a whisper. There's someone at my door. I don't know who it is. I live alone and I don't know what they want. Okay, ma'am, stay calm. Are you in a safe place? I don't know. I admitted. I moved away from the door, every part of me aching to just close my eyes and pretend it wasn't happening. I'm in my apartment. They're at the door. I can't see their face. The operator paused. You can't see their face? No, it's just like darkness, like a shadow. I can just see the outline of them. They're not moving, just standing there. My voice broke. I could hear the knocks again. Quieter this time, almost like they were waiting for me to look. But I couldn't. I didn't want to. Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line. I'm going to send someone. Are you armed? No, I'm not. I felt exposed, small, like a child alone in the night. The knocking slowed, and then it stopped entirely. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. My ears rang in quiet, waiting for a sound that might not come. I could hear my own heartbeat now, rapid and uneven. I tried to rationalize it, tried to tell myself it was some prankster or a neighbor, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. There was something wrong about the figure at my door, something not human. I glanced through the peephole. Nothing, just the dark hallway of my apartment building, empty and silent. I pressed my eye closer, straining to see, and that's when I saw it, or rather, didn't see it. The outline of a person, standing there, perfectly still, and yet the face. There was no face, no features at all, just a blankness where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. I gasped, stumbling backward from the door. The phone slipped from my hand, and I caught it just in time to hear the operator again. Ma'am, are you still there? Yes, yes, I whispered, though my voice was shaking so badly I could barely control it. They have no face. I don't understand. They're just standing there, watching. I can't. Then the knocking started again. Not at the door this time. Not physically. It was in my head. Knock, knock, knock. Each one synchronized with my heartbeat, echoing louder and louder until I felt it deep in my chest. I pressed the phone to my ear, tried to hear the operator's calm voice, but all I could focus on was the pounding in my skull. Ma'am, listen to me. I'm still on the line. Help is on the way. The voice was distant now, like it was coming from far away, muffled, distorted. The knocks intensified, shifting from a sound to vibration through my bones. I dropped to the floor, curling into myself. My eyes darted to the door. The outline hadn't moved, hadn't changed, but I knew it was there. I didn't need to see it to know. There was a presence, a weight, a watching intent that pressed against my chest. I felt my stomach churn, while rising. "Please," I whispered. "Just go away." No answer came. Only the knocks, now faster, almost urgent. I could feel the walls of my apartment closing in, my small living space turning into a cage. I wanted to scream, but my throat was dry, as if it had forgotten the sound of my own voice. Then silence again. Absolute, suffocating silence. I dared to look at the door. It was just a door. Nothing had changed. No figure, no shadow, nothing. And yet, I knew it hadn't left. It was there, always there, lurking just beyond the threshold, waiting for me to make a mistake. The operator's voice cut through the haze of fear. "The officers are outside. Stay calm. Can you meet them at the door?" I nodded, though they couldn't see me. Slowly, trembling, I moved to the door and opened it just enough to see the stairwell. Empty. Cold air whispered in, smelling faintly of rain and decay. I peeked around. A uniformed officer stood there, flashlight in hand. Relief should have flooded me, but it didn't. I stepped outside, still holding the phone to my ear. It was just here, I said, trying to explain. It had no face. I swear it wasn't human. The officer frowned. "Ma'am, there's nothing here. Nobody was here." I stared at the empty hallway, my hands shaking, and a cold realization sank in. But it was standing there. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I nodded weakly, though inside I felt broken. Something had been there. I had heard it, felt it, and I knew, in some part of me, that it wasn't gone. Not really. Not ever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't dare. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind, every shadow in the corner of my eye reminded me that the figure was still out there, waiting, watching, patient, and I knew it would come back. I didn't think I could feel more afraid than I had the night of the first knock, but I was wrong. After that night, I kept replaying every sound, every shadow, every heartbeat. And then it started again. Not at my door this time, but inside my apartment, threading through the walls, echoing along the narrow hallways that I had once walked without thought. It began as a whisper, almost too soft to hear, like the wind curling around a corner. At first, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. I had been alone for months, working nights, and my mind had grown accustomed to silence. But there was no ignoring it. I heard it in the pause between breaths, in the spaces where sound should not have existed. I grabbed my phone again, calling 911. My fingers were trembling, and I had to steady my hand against the wall to keep from dropping it. The operator answered, calm and distant, and I tried to explain what I was hearing. There are whispers. I don't know where they're coming from. It's like they're inside the walls, or the floor, or maybe everywhere at once. There was a pause, just a fraction of a second, but it felt like hours. "Ma'am, stay calm. Can you describe what you hear?" I can't. It's just voices. Sometimes it sounds like someone calling my name. Sometimes it's laughter, but wrong. Too soft, too hollow. It's not human. I shivered as I spoke, curling the phone cord around my wrist. And the shadows, they move. They shouldn't be able to, but they do. Against logic. On their own. The operator hesitated, as if unsure how to respond. "Shadows? Ma'am, are you sure you're safe?" "I don't know." I admitted, "I don't know what's happening. I can't leave. I don't want to see them. But I can't stop." It started slowly at first. I noticed the corner of the hallway, where the light didn't reach, shifting slightly, stretching across the walls like liquid smoke. Then a shadow near the kitchen seemed to stretch just a little too long, too deliberate, as if it were watching me as I tried to move. My mind wanted to rationalize it. Maybe it was a dim light. Maybe it was a reflection of the street lamp outside. But the more I watched, the more impossible it became. I moved closer, gripping the phone in my ear as if the operator's voice could anchor me to reality. "I can see it," I whispered. "There. Did you hear that?" The operator didn't respond immediately. Then came a faint sound over the line, a low, almost imperceptible murmur, like someone breathing very close to the receiver. I froze. My blood turned to ice. "Yes," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That's what I'm hearing." "Ma'am, stay calm. Try to identify the source. Are there any windows open? Any vents? Any neighbors?" "No," I said quickly. "None of that. It's inside. I know it's inside. And the shadows, they move when I'm not looking directly at them. I think they follow me." The line went silent again, only the faintest click of the operator shifting in her seat. I could hear my own breathing, fast, shallow, uneven. I wanted to leave, but every step toward the door felt heavier, as if the apartment itself were resisting me. The shadows pulled near the corners, stretching, twisting in ways that defied physics, creeping along walls as if they were alive. Then I heard it clearly, a whisper calling my name, slow and deliberate. I dropped to my knees, clutching the phone to my chest. I couldn't tell if it was inside me or outside me. My vision narrowed, focusing only on the shapes at the edges of the light. They weren't static. They didn't belong to the furniture or the walls. They were moving, sliding, skimming along surfaces with no sound, no reason, just intent. Watching, waiting. I can see them. I gasped. They know I'm here. They know I'm calling you. I don't know what to do. The operator's voice was steady, patient, a lifeline. "Ma'am, stay calm. We're sending someone. Can you stay on the line until help arrives?" I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I crawled slowly toward the living room, every inch of carpet and with floor beneath me feeling like it could shift, snap, swallow me whole. The whispers came again, overlapping, layering, making no sense. Sometimes they repeated words I had said earlier. Sometimes they said things I had never heard before, intimate details, like they knew me, like they had always known me. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. My eyes darted from shadow to shadow. One in particular caught my attention, a long, thin shape near the hallway, darker than the darkness around it. It stretched and contracted, moving toward me without moving, and I could swear I felt a weight pressing down on my chest. I tried to breathe slowly, tried to tell myself it was a trick of the mind, but the whispers kept coming, growing louder, more insistent. Then I heard the creak of the floor behind me. Another shadow moved, sliding across the floorboards as if it were alive, separate from the first. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. It's moving," I whispered. They're everywhere." The operator was calm, a tether to reality I clung to desperately. "Ma'am, stay on the line. Help is coming. Keep calm." I nodded again, even though it was meaningless. My vision narrowed further, and I realized something worse than the shadows themselves. They weren't just moving randomly. They were deliberate. Each one followed a rhythm, a pattern, tracing my steps, matching my breathing. I felt trapped, as if the apartment were closing in, shrinking around me, the walls bending slightly, subtly, in ways that didn't make sense. I backed into the corner of the living room, phone pressed to my ear, breathing shallow. My mind raced, trying to rationalize. I thought of childhood fears, of shadows in closet, of nightmares where the room shifts while you sleep. But this was different. This was waking. This was real. Real in a way I couldn't escape. I heard another whisper then, clearer, closer. Stopped looking. I slammed my eyes shut, pressing my face to my knees. My ears strained, hearing more voices now, overlapping, whispering in a language I didn't understand. Some of them were my own words, repeated back to me in a mocking echo. Others were urgent, soft commands. I could feel them pressing into my consciousness, bending my thoughts, trying to twist me into something else. I heard a faint tap at the door. Just one, then another, then silence. I opened my eyes slowly. The shadows hadn't moved closer, but I could feel them. They were aware, conscious of me, patient, waiting. I shivered, pressing my back against the wall, staring at the hallway. The longer I looked, the longer the darkness seemed to thicken, stretching further than it had any right to. The operator's voice broke through again. "Ma'am, are you still there?" "Yes," I whispered, voice barely audible. I don't know if I can stay much longer. They know I'm here. They're moving when I'm not looking. I can't." The line went silent for a moment. Then she said gently, "Help is right outside. Can you hear them?" I nodded, though I didn't know if she could see me. My eyes darted from corner to corner, tracing shapes that shouldn't exist, feeling every brush of air as if it carried weight. And then I heard it. Not the whispers, not the movement, but a faint click, a sound that made my blood run cold. The kind of sound a lock makes when it isn't supposed to. The door handle rattled softly, not from the outside, not in a normal way. And I knew, with a sinking, hopeless certainty, that they were reaching inside. I pressed myself flat against the wall, phone trembling in my hand. The shadows stayed just out of reach, but I could feel their attention, like eyes burning into me from the dark. And in that moment, I understood something I didn't want to. They weren't just in the hallway. They were inside me now, waiting. The phone went dead. One moment, the operator's calm voice was in my ear, guiding me, grounding me. The next, silence. Absolute, suffocating silence, except for the low hum of the radiator. I held the phone tighter, my knuckles white, pressing it against my chest like a talisman. I dialed again. Nothing. A fast, flat beat that mocked me. I couldn't even call for help anymore. The world had shrunk to my apartment. The walls pressing closer, the shadows stretching farther than any light should allow. I had never felt this small, this trapped, in a place I had once called home. The knocking had stopped, but it had been replaced by something worse, something patient, something that moved in the dark. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, a floorboard creaking, the wind brushing the window. But then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, circling the apartment. Slow, too slow, heavy enough that I could feel the vibrations under my bare feet. I froze, my chest tightening, my lungs begging for air I didn't dare take. I whispered into the dark, "Who's there?" The words felt absurd, hollow. No answer, only the footsteps, shifting, moving, never quite stopping. It was as if the apartment itself had grown a pulse, a rhythm, and something unseen was moving with it. I pressed my back against the wall, counting silently. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Start. The footsteps never left a pattern I could predict. And always, they circled me, closing without ever revealing themselves. I wanted to turn on all the lights, flood the apartment in brightness. But the darkness wasn't afraid of light. It wasn't afraid of anything. Even the lamps flickered and dimmed, as if protesting my presence, leaving me with shadows thicker than black paint. I shivered. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone again. Not to call 911. There was no one to call, but to record. If this was real, someone had to hear it. Someone had to know. My thumb hovered over the record button. Every instinct screamed at me not to do it, but curiosity and terror drove me forward. I pressed it, and a tiny red light blinked. The apartment felt different once I started recording. Alive, watching. I could hear the faintest whisper against the microphone, like someone had leaned in just out of view. It wasn't words, not yet, just the sound of breathing. Slow, shallow, deliberate. I knew it wasn't mine. I hadn't been moving. I had barely breathed. I whispered into the phone, hoping the recorder would pick it up. I don't know what you want. My voice trembled so badly, the words barely left my lips. The footsteps moved again, quicker this time, brushing past the corners of my apartment. Something circled the couch, pausing just long enough that I felt the air shift, the pressure change, as if a person had stopped and was studying me. I couldn't see it, not fully, but I felt it. Each brush of air against my skin, every shift of shadow on the walls, the faint click of floorboards I wasn't standing on, It was all proof enough. My heart hammered in my chest, my stomach knotted, and I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I was too afraid that if I made a sound, it would know I existed fully. And then, I couldn't imagine what would happen. I moved slowly toward the kitchen, phone in hand, recording every sound, every whisper. My reflection in the window caught my eye and I froze. For a moment, I thought I saw someone standing behind me, a dark shape, taller than it should have been, moving against a reflection in a way that made no sense. I spun around. Nothing, only the shadows, thick and patient, waiting for me to look away. I whispered again, trying to convince myself I was safe. I'm alone. I'm alone. The words were meant as reassurance, but they sounded hollow even to me. The darkness answered with something worse than silence. A low, rasping breath, not mine, close enough that I could feel it brush the back of my neck. I whipped my head around. Nothing, only shadows, only the low hum of the radiator, only the sound of my own ragged heartbeat. I realized then that the footsteps weren't following a pattern. They were deliberate, but chaotic in a way I couldn't predict. Sometimes they stopped. Sometimes they circled. Sometimes they moved backward, tracing their own steps, confusing me, making me question if I was imagining everything. I wasn't imagining it. I knew that. I crouched low in the hallway, recording, listening, my ears straining. The air felt heavy, thick, almost liquid. Every breath I drew seemed to carry it deeper into my lungs. I tried to remind myself that it was just a person, maybe a burglar or a prankster. But logic had left me hours ago. This wasn't human. This was something patient. Something older than the city around me. Something that didn't need to see me to know I was there. A sudden shift of air made me flinch. The sound of footsteps moved directly behind me. I froze, every muscle locked in terror. I could feel the presence of it, whatever it was, so close I could imagine it breathing on my neck. Though when I turned, the hallway was empty. The recording was capturing it all. Every whisper, every creak, every movement. And when I played it back, it sounded wrong. Distorted, slower in some parts, like the shadows themselves were bending time. I whispered again into the phone, my voice shaking. Please, just go away. I don't want to see you. I don't want to know you're here. The footsteps paused. The air shifted. And then I felt it. A brush of weight against my shoulder. A presence so close it made my skin crawl. I spun around. Nothing. I was alone. And yet, I knew I wasn't. I moved toward the living room. Slowly, carefully, phone recording, every step measured. The shadows moved with me, stretching, twisting, growing thicker the closer I got to them. I realized with a cold certainty that the apartment had changed. The layout felt wrong. Distances were different. Corners were farther than they should have been. And the shadows, they were alive. Always moving, never leaving, always patient. I crouched on the floor, pressing the phone against my chest, trying to anchor myself. The footsteps moved again, slow circles around me, closer and closer. I could feel them under the floor, through the walls, through the air itself. Every sense screamed at me to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The apartment had become a cage, the shadows the bars, and I was trapped inside. I remember the first night, the knocks, the faceless figure. I thought I had left. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. It never leaves. It waits. It stalks. It moves in the spaces we ignore, the corners we don't see, the shadows that shift just beyond our vision. I pressed my head against the floor, whispering into the phone, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. I don't know what you want, please. I don't want this. The footsteps slowed. A heavy pause. Then a soft, deliberate breath, almost in sync with my own, close enough that I could feel it moving against my skin. I lifted my head slightly. The shadows shifted in response, not fleeing, not hiding, but leaning, pressing closer. I realized, in a moment of horrifying clarity, that the shadows weren't just in my apartment. They were part of me now, inside me, watching through my eyes, listening to my thoughts, waiting for me to make a mistake. The recording kept running. Every whisper, every footstep, every subtle shift of the air. Every brush of weight against my shoulder, it was all there, captured, waiting for someone to believe it. And I knew that when I finally stopped recording, when I finally dared to leave the spot, the shadows would follow, because they always do. I thought the worst was over when I pressed record. I thought that somehow, capturing the sounds, the footsteps, the whispers, would give me control. But control is a lie when the darkness decides to move beyond the boundaries of logic, when the air itself grows heavy, alive, and patient. It was late, later than I had any right to still be awake, but I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my living room, phone in hand, playing back the recording from earlier, hoping to hear confirmation that what I had felt was real. And it was. Every soft whisper, every deliberate step, every brush of weight against me was there. Clear, real, captured, and yet it still felt alive in the apartment. Like it wasn't just sound, it was presence. I was so absorbed that I didn't notice the silence that had crept in around me. The apartment was too quiet. The shadows were still. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, loud enough that it felt like it could wake the darkness if I made a single wrong move. I told myself it was just a pause, just a calm before some kind of storm. I should have known better. I set the phone down on the coffee table, staring at the hallway, the front door. I hadn't dared to look at it directly since the first night, since the faceless figure had been there. But something drew my gaze now, an instinct I couldn't explain, and that's when I saw it. The door, open. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I had locked it before I started recording. I always locked it. Always. Yet there it was, swinging slowly, a gap of blackness in the frame of my doorway. My mind raced. Did I leave it unlocked? Did I forget? No. I was meticulous. I always checked. I always made sure. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to run. I wanted to grab the phone and call 911. Call someone, anyone, but I didn't, because I knew that whatever had done this wasn't going to wait for me to be ready. It didn't need me to be ready. I approached the door slowly, each step measured, silent. The air around it felt heavier than it should have, almost liquid, pressing against my chest. My fingers brushed the doorknob. Cold, too cold, like ice beneath my skin. I swallowed, tried to convince myself it was just a draft, just the building settling. But my gut told me differently. It was something else, something patient. I stepped back. I pressed the phone to my ear, dialing 911 again, though I wasn't sure it would even work. My hands shook so badly the buttons blurred beneath my fingers. The line rang once, twice, and then a click. Dead silence. No operator, no dial tone, no static. Just nothing. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. Hello? Please, someone answer. My voice was small, fragile, but I spoke anyway, even knowing no one could hear. Because speaking made me feel alive, made me feel like I could still resist. But the silence answered me instead. The shadows in the room shifted subtly. I saw a movement in the corner of my vision, something slipping along the wall, almost imperceptibly. My stomach dropped. I hadn't moved, and yet it had moved. Watching, waiting, patient. The apartment was no longer mine. It belonged to them now, or maybe it always had. I remember the first knocks, the faceless figure, the whispers, the footsteps circling me, and suddenly it all made sense in a horrifying way. They had never left, not for a single moment. They had only waited, patient, until I thought I could record them, document them, expose them, and then they moved. The front door creaked slowly, a long, deliberate sound, like a warning. I pressed myself against the wall, phone recording again, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run, to scream. But I didn't. I couldn't. I wanted to see them. I wanted to understand. I wanted proof that I wasn't going insane. And then I heard it. Not a whisper this time. Not a movement. A scream. High-pitched, raw, and utterly unexplainable. It wasn't mine. It wasn't human. It was something that came from deep inside the apartment, from the walls, from the shadows themselves. It was a scream that carried centuries of patience, of waiting, of knowing. I dropped the phone. My hands flew to my ears, but it was everywhere, inside my skull, around my body, vibrating through the floor. I pressed myself against the wall, curling into myself, rocking slightly, whispering over and over, "It's not real, it's not real, it's not real." But I knew it was. Every nerve in my body screamed that it was real. And then silence, absolute silence. Not even my own breathing, not even the hum of the radiator. The kind of silence that presses on your ears, fills your chest, and stretches your mind until it aches. I dare not move. I dare not breathe. I could feel the presence, whatever it was, lingering just beyond the edge of perception, watching me, waiting for me to break. I don't know how long I stayed pressed against that wall. Minutes? Hours? My sense of time had dissolved entirely. All I knew was the silence and the weight of it, the impossibility of understanding it, the fact that I was still alive to witness it. Eventually, I heard voices outside, faint at first, then louder. They were human. They carried authority, purpose, and sanity. Police. Someone had finally come. I whispered into the dark, hoping they could hear me, hoping they could see me, hoping I wasn't too late. When the door swung open fully, light spilled into the apartment, and it was empty. Nothing. No shadows. No movement. No evidence of the presence I had felt. No trace of a scream that had torn through my senses. Just my apartment, quiet, familiar, but impossible. The officers stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the dim light of the early morning. I tried to explain, tried to tell them everything, but the words faltered on my lips. They listened politely, exchanged glances, took notes, but the disbelief was clear in their eyes. I couldn't blame them. I would have doubted me too. "Ma'am," one said gently, "there's nothing here. The apartment looks normal. No signs of a break-in, no signs of disturbance." I nodded numbly. I know what I felt. I whispered. I know what I heard. I can't explain it, but it was real. They didn't argue, but they didn't say anything. I think even they knew there were some things you couldn't prove. Some things that existed only in the moments when the world pressed too close to the dark, and you couldn't look away. I walked through the apartment with them, pointing out corners, doorways, places where I felt the shadows move, where the footsteps had circled. They followed, taking notes, shining their lights, but they saw nothing. And the deeper we went, the heavier the silence grew, until it was almost suffocating. I wanted to ask them to stay, to wait with me, to prove that I wasn't alone, but I knew it wouldn't help, because it had gone, or maybe it had simply hidden itself again. And I understood, in that quiet moment, that it would return. Always. Not because it had to, but because it wanted to. When the officers left, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I sat in the middle of the living room, phone in hand, listening to a recording, hoping against hope that it captured everything, hoping someone, somewhere would understand. But even the recording, clear as it was, felt insufficient. It didn't carry the weight. It didn't carry the presence. It couldn't carry the knowing, the patient awareness that had pressed down on me, circled me, and left me alive but broken. I couldn't stay. Not then, not ever. The apartment was no longer mine. It belonged to something else. And I understood with a cold, hopeless certainty that it didn't care if I understood. It didn't care if I feared it. It existed because it could, and it would wait. Patient. Always. I left the apartment that morning, not knowing where I would go, but knowing that I couldn't return. The streets felt too bright, too loud, too alive. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see the shadow waiting, patient, just beyond the edge of sight. I didn't see it, but I felt it, and I knew that was enough. I don't know what happened to me that night. I don't know if I will ever understand it, but I know this. The recording, the screams, the shadows, the faceless presence, they were all real. And the apartment? It waits, waiting for the next person who dares to listen, who dares to see, who dares to exist within the wrong kind of silence. And when they come back, the door will be open. I had been working the dispatch desk for years, and I thought I had heard everything. Car accidents, domestic disputes, people screaming in panic. It was my job to stay calm, to guide, to listen, even when the world was falling apart on the other end of the line. But that night was different. The call came in just past midnight. The line crackled, the static thick enough that I could barely hear the man's voice at first. And then it broke through, loud, ragged, desperate. "Help! Please! Somebody please!" he screamed. It wasn't the kind of scream that came from fear of a fall or a cut finger. It was primal, raw. It carried the weight of something wrong. I leaned forward, headset tight against my ear, fingers poised over buttons, trying to calm him, trying to guide him. Sir, this is 911. Calm down. Tell me what's happening." The voice came back, but it was distorted now, warped, layered over static. Words overlapped in ways that didn't make sense. "No, can't there?" The line crackled again, tearing the sound into shards of noise that made my skin crawl. I adjusted the headset, fingers trembling slightly. "Sir, I can hear you. Tell me where you are. Tell me what's happening." Another scream, longer this time, desperate. It sounded like the voice itself was stretching, twisting, trying to get free. And then whispers, faint, almost impossible to separate from the static. They weren't words, at least not real words. Just sounds, breaths, murmurs, laughter maybe, or crying. My stomach churned. "Hello? Sir? Are you there?" I asked, voice firmer now, though my hands shook. The line went dead for a second, leaving only that low, white noise of static. And then the scream returned. Not just a human scream anymore. Something else had layered itself on top. Something deep, resonant, like the sound was coming from beneath the earth. I grabbed my clipboard, scribbling notes as quickly as I could. The dispatcher before me had trained me well. Document everything, every second, every sound. But how do you document the sound of pure terror? Of something bending reality over a single phone line? "Sir, you need to stay on the line. I can't help you if you hang up." My voice cracked, despite my best effort to stay professional. Static, whispering, and then words. His words? Maybe. It's inside, can't get distorted, garbled, repeating themselves. I leaned back in my chair, head pounding, heart racing. I had never felt so powerless, so exposed. "Can you hear me? Where are you?" I asked, trying to anchor both of us in reality. Another scream, longer, sharper, the sound making the hair on the back of my neck rise. And then the whispers again. Only this time, I thought I recognized one. My name, clear. My voice. No, not my voice, a copy of it, drawn from somewhere deep in the static. I swallowed hard. I don't understand. Did you just call my name? My own words sounded strange to me, almost foreign. The man screamed again, overlapping with something else. Something that sounded like hundreds of voices layered together, speaking in tones that didn't exist in human language. The static burned in my ears, the headset vibrating faintly, like the sound itself had weight. I pressed a mute button for a second, catching my breath. My hands shook. I had heard strange calls before, people claiming impossible things. But this was different. It felt alive. The sound wasn't just in the phone, it was in the room, in the air, pressing down, curling around me. I pressed on mute. "Sir, listen to me. I need you to calm down. You're safe. Okay? We're gonna get help to you." And then the scream stopped. Abruptly. Silence. Not just silence, but something worse. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, against your chest, that fills every corner of your mind. I could hear my own heartbeat. I could hear my own breath. And then another whisper. Clear. Distinct. This time I was sure. It said my name. I jumped in my chair, fingers clutching the headset. Who's there? Who's on the line? Static. Whispers. Faint laughter. And then the voice of the man again, quiet, almost too calm. "They're here." A chill ran down my spine. I could feel the temperature in the room drop. Though the heat was on, I shivered. "Who's here? Where are you?" No answer. Just static and the faintest rasping sound, like someone breathing, waiting. I grab my radio, calling the units on the ground. Unit 12, I have a 911 call in progress. Mayo, screaming for help, line full of static, unknown location. Proceed with caution. The radio click crackled, and I heard only partial responses. Copy approaching area. My stomach twisted. My professional training told me to stay calm, to stay composed. But something in the static, in the warped voices, whispered at the edge of my mind, twisting my thoughts, making me question what was real. I returned to the phone. The man screamed again, longer, more desperate, and I realized I couldn't tell if it was coming from the phone or if it was inside the room. Inside me, the voices overlapped, layered, bending reality around that sound. It wasn't just a call anymore. It was an intrusion, a weight pressing against the edges of everything I knew. I tried to talk, to guide him. Sir, listen, I need you to stay calm. Can you describe your surroundings? Static answered, distorted, broken whispers, and then a word. A single word, repeated over and over. Inside, inside, inside. I froze. My pulse skyrocketed. Inside? Inside what? Please tell me. The line cut again, dead silence. My stomach nodded. I hit the buttons, tried to reconnect, trying to pull him back into the line. And then it clicked back on. A scream. But this one, it was mine. My own scream. My own voice layered over his. Screaming, terrified, ragged. I yanked the headset away from my ear, pressing my hands to my face. My breathing came in ragged gasps. I looked around the room. Nothing. Empty office. Phones on desks. Fluorescent lights humming. Colleagues asleep at their own stations. Nothing but reality. And yet, I could hear it. The scream continued faintly through the line, overlapping with static, overlapping with whispers, overlapping with something else. Something I couldn't identify. I pressed the mute button and sat back, trying to calm myself. My mind raced. Was I imagining it? Was it a trick of the audio? If I had been trained to recognize distorted lines, interference, background noise, this was different. Alive, intentional, watching, waiting. I hit unmute again. The man's voice returned, faint, distorted, warping into something inhuman. They want you? I froze. My hands trembled. Want me? Who wants me? Static, laughter, then silence. Absolute silence. I tried to trace the call, triangulate, locate him, but the line kept cutting, warping, moving in ways that didn't make sense. Coordinates shifted, signals dropped, and through it all, the whispers followed. My name, my voice, layered over screams. I called for a supervisor, tried to explain, tried to make sense of it, but the words stumbled over themselves. It's not normal, I said. It's not human. It's alive. She stared at me, concerned. Alive? What are you talking about? I didn't have an answer. I couldn't explain it. All I knew was the way the call had invaded my mind, the way the voices lingered in the static, the way my own voice had become part of it, screaming, layered, broken. The call ended eventually, abruptly, not with a polite sign-off, not with a click, just dead silence. The kind of silence that follows a storm of noise, the kind that presses against your chest and makes your head spin. I sat in my chair, headset dangling, staring at the phone, unable to move. Even now, I can hear it sometimes. A faint static, a whisper, a layering of voices too many to separate. The scream. Mine. Not mine. Somewhere between. Something else. I don't know if the man survived. I don't know if he ever existed outside of the line. All I know is that the call changed me. It left a mark inside my mind. A weight I carry with me every time the phone rings. And I know even now that it's still out there waiting in the static, waiting for the next call, waiting for the next person who listens too closely, because it wants to be heard, and it doesn't care who listens. I couldn't sleep after the call. Not that I ever really slept easily during night shifts, but that night was different. The kind of different that presses into your chest and lingers long after sun rises. Every shadow in my apartment seemed sharper, every creak of the building louder, and every whisper of static from my phone reminded me of that scream. The scream that shouldn't have existed, yet had. That line, those voices, they weren't gone. Not really. I told my supervisor I needed a follow-up. We had protocols for tracing calls, for tracking anomalies, for contacting local units in emergencies. But this wasn't normal. I couldn't shake the feeling that the call had spread, like a stain across the city, leaking into places it shouldn't have been, places that didn't even exist. I left the station after my shift, driving carefully through streets that felt unfamiliar, though I had traveled them 1,000 times. The city seemed quieter, as if it, too, had paused to listen. My phone sat on the passenger seat, recorder running again, though nothing was on it yet. I needed proof. I needed evidence that I wasn't losing my mind. I arrived at the address where the call had supposedly come from. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just an apartment building, silent, unremarkable. The lights in the windows were dim, a few flickering, like they couldn't decide whether to stay on or go. I walked toward the entrance, badge in hand, heart thudding in my chest. And then I heard it, a faint cry, soft, distant, but unmistakable. Human, a man screaming, or maybe a woman, or maybe it was neither. I froze, ears straining, heart hammering. The sound seemed to come from inside the walls themselves, vibrating through the bricks and plaster, pressing against me in ways that made the air feel thick and heavy. I stepped closer. Hello. My voice sounded small, fragile, almost swallowed by the night. The cry stopped. I waited. The silence pressed in, curling around me, alive. And then it came again. The same scream. Clearer this time. Layered, like it was echoing through multiple walls at once. I checked the address. Apartment 12B. Correct. And yet, as I walked down the hallway, I realized something strange. Numbers repeated. 12B again. And again, down the corridor. Identical doors, identical numbers, identical intercoms. It didn't make sense. The building only had 15 units. These extra doors shouldn't exist. And yet, I could hear the cries coming from each one. I tried the first door. Locked. No response. The next one. Locked. And again, the cries continued, coming from behind doors that didn't exist on any official blueprint. I pressed my ear to the wall. The sound vibrated through the plaster, through the metal pipes, as if the building itself were alive, resonating with their screams. I backed up, phone out, recording. I needed proof. Someone needed to hear this. I whispered into the recorder. This is real. I hear it. I don't understand it, but it's here. The cries grew louder, overlapping, layered, repeating words I couldn't comprehend. Sometimes I thought I heard my own voice in them, stretched and warped, calling back at me. My stomach churned. My fingers trembled against the recorder. I wanted to leave, wanted to run, but I couldn't. I was rooted in place, listening, trying to make sense of something that defied reason. I called the station. My own voice on the line sounded strange, distant. I'm at the building, I said, voice shaking. The cries, they're coming from everywhere. Doors that don't exist. Apartments that shouldn't be here. You have to hear this. The dispatcher on the other end was confused, asking me to clarify. I tried. I couldn't. Words failed me. How do you explain impossible architecture, impossible sounds, voices layered like a chorus of despair coming from places that should not exist? How do you explain that the city itself feels wrong? I walked down the hall again. Each door I passed had a number I recognized from the official layout, but behind each, the sound was identical. The cries echoed through every wall, every hallway, layered, repeating, stretching. I pressed my hand to the door 12B. Cold, ice cold. My breath hitched. The scream came again, synchronized with my heartbeat. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the recorder. I pressed it close, whispering into it. I don't understand. I don't know if this is reality, but I hear it. I hear them. All of them. I can't leave. Not yet. I tried to call the units. Tell them to come check the building. My phone refused. Dead signal. No connection. And yet, the cries continued, layered over each other, multiplied. Repeating my own name at one point, faint but undeniable. I couldn't tell which scream belonged to man from a 911 call, and which was new, separate, yet identical. I pressed my back to the wall, trying to ground myself. My breathing was shallow, rapid. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold a recorder. I tried to listen analytically, to trace patterns, but there were none. Only repetition, only impossible echoes, a chorus of despair that defied physics and reason. I thought I saw movement in the shadows, a shape darker than the darkness, slipping along the baseboards just out of sight. My mind jumped to the worst possibilities. Ghosts, demons, or maybe something older, waiting, patient, moving through walls and doors as if they were nothing more than paper. I pressed the recorder to my ear, trying to decipher the overlapping cries. Sometimes they repeated words I had never heard, phrases that sounded familiar and wrong at the same time, as if the building were speaking through them. My stomach twisted. I wanted to leave, but curiosity or terror kept me rooted in place. The hallway seemed to stretch. I could feel it bending subtly, impossibly, like the building itself had grown larger than its walls should allow. Each door I passed whispered in unison, a chorus of despair that pressed against my brain. I leaned against the wall, whispering into the recorder again. I don't know how this is possible. Doors that shouldn't exist, voices that they're everywhere. They're all the same, and I can't stop hearing them. I realized with a sinking, hollow certainty that the cries weren't just coming from the building. They were coming from somewhere deeper, somewhere I couldn't name. They were part of the walls, part of the foundation, part of the city itself. And the longer I stayed, the more impossible it became to distinguish the real from the impossible. I walked back toward the entrance, trying to retrace my steps. The cries followed, layered, identical, relentless. Every step I took, every door I passed, the sound clung to me, pressing closer, wrapping around my chest, making my lungs burn. I pressed myself to the wall, closing my eyes, trying to ground myself in something tangible. And then I noticed it. One of the doors I had passed before, the number was wrong. Not 12B. Something new. Something that hadn't been there before. I froze, staring at it. The cries came from behind it. Louder now, closer, almost impatient. I wanted to run. I wanted to leave. But I pressed the recorder closer to my mouth. Whispered again. I don't know what this is. I don't know how it's possible. But it's real. All of it. Every sound, every voice, every impossible thing. It's here. It's watching. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. The rational part of me screamed that I should leave. The irrational part, the part that had been tethered to reality for so long, wanted to know, wanted to hear. And I knew that whichever choice I made, neither would let me go. I left the building eventually, the cries fading slightly as I stepped outside into the night. But I could still hear them. Faint, layered, impossible. I drove back to the station, recorder running, hoping someone would hear, hoping someone would understand. But deep down, I knew it didn't matter. The cries weren't confined to one apartment, one building, one city. They existed wherever attention lingered. They were patient, endless, repeating. And they had learned to mimic the sound of fear, the sound of despair, the sound of voices that had once been human. I never traced call again. I never returned to that building. But sometimes in the quiet of my apartment, in the hum of fluorescent lights, in the crackle of my phone, I hear them, layered, impossible, patient. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that they are still waiting, still listening, still calling. And if I hear them, even once, even just a whisper, I know they will follow. When we arrived, I expected an apartment building, a street, an address. Something tangible, something real. What I found instead, I don't know what to call it. A void, a gap in reality. As if the house, the building, the source of screams and whispers had simply ceased to exist. The street was quiet and normal, illuminated by the faint glow of streetlights. The air smelled faintly of asphalt and damp leaves, nothing more. No trace of the apartment. No shadow of a door. No evidence of a building that had held so much terror. I stepped out of the car, radio clutched in my hand. Officers around me were whispering, confused, checking their own notes, their flashlights sweeping across the empty lot where the building should have been. My knees were weak, my mouth dry. I kept thinking I was dreaming, that any second the building would reappear, like a trick of perspective. But it didn't. The 911 line was still open in my headset. I hadn't hung up, though no one on the station had stopped me. Part of me wanted to. Part of me was terrified. But I needed to know what had happened. Needed to hear if it was still there, still alive, still watching. The line crackled, faint at first, almost like static. But then I heard it. Whispers. Soft. So low I had to strain to hear them. Layered. Multiplied. Repeating words I couldn't quite comprehend. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't human. It was something else. And yet it carried the same cadence, the same rhythm, the same terror I had heard on the original call. I pressed the headset closer. Hello? Are you there? Sir? Ma'am. My voice shook, thin, fragile. The whispers responded in no words I could recognize. Just sounds, a low undulation of air that pressed against my skull. My stomach knotted, and I realized my hands were trembling. My own name surfaced in the whispers for a fraction of a second. Almost familiar, almost inviting. One of the officers stepped beside me, flashlight scanning the empty street. Ma'am, what are you doing? There's nothing here. No building. Nothing unusual. I swallowed hard. I know what I heard. The call, it's still on the line. And I hear them. Whispers. Faint. But they're there. Somewhere. He frowned. You're still connected to the line? I nodded, pressing my thumb against the button to keep it live. The whispers intensified slightly, almost aware of being noticed. My pulse hammered in my chest. I wanted to flee, wanted to drop the headset and run, but my curiosity, my terror, held me in place. The street was quiet otherwise. No wind, no cars, no ambient noise. It was as if the world itself had been muted around this gap, leaving only the static, the whispers, and me. My ears strained, trying to separate voices from nothingness. I thought I could hear multiple layers, calls from the first night, echoes from the apartment that never existed, cries from doors that shouldn't have been there. They were all fused together, repeating, overlapping, alive. I walked slowly toward the spot where the building had been. My boots clicked against the asphalt. The whispers seemed to follow me, shifting, weaving around my feet, moving with me, pressing into my chest. I realized the sound wasn't coming from a direction, wasn't rooted in space. It was everywhere and nowhere. Do you hear that? I whispered to the officer beside me. He looked at me blankly. Hear what? I wanted to scream, to explain, but the words caught in my throat. How do you explain whispers coming from a house that doesn't exist? How do you tell someone that the echoes of screams and calls and terror can continue even when the source has vanished? I swallowed hard, gripping the headset tighter, and then I heard it, a scream, low, guttural, human at first, but then stretched, distorted, drawn across a frequency that made my teeth ache. It wasn't coming from any physical space. I spun around, eyes wide, heart pounding, but there was nothing, only the empty street, empty lot, faint mist rising from the asphalt. The whispers continued, soft and layered, echoing through the line. I pressed my lips to the microphone. Hello? Can you hear me? Are you still there? A pause, then a sound that made my blood run cold. A laugh, faint, delicate, almost childlike, but warped, broken, not human. The kind of sound that shouldn't exist, and yet was undeniably present. The officer beside me stiffened, looking at me with concern, but I could see it in his eyes. He couldn't hear it. Only I could. Only I was tethered to this impossible thing. I stepped back, breathing shallow. My vision blurred slightly from the tension, the weight of fear pressing down. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, to disconnect, to destroy the headset. But I couldn't. I couldn't leave the line. I needed to understand. I needed to witness the impossible. The whispers grew louder. Words started to form, or what I perceived as words. Names, phrases, even fragmented sentences. You see follow waiting, repetition, obsession, intent. I pressed the recorder closer to my ear, heart hammering. It felt alive, aware, as if it knew I was listening, as if it existed only because I was paying attention. I remember the call, the faceless figure, the doors that didn't exist. And now, the building was gone, erased, wiped from reality. And yet, the voices remained, persistent, patient, mocking, almost like the world had a hole in it, a wound, and this presence was bleeding through. I could feel it then, the same weight pressing down I had felt on that first night. Not physical, not quite, but close enough to make my chest ache, my lungs tighten. I wanted to step back, to leave the street, to run into anything, anywhere. That was normal. But my legs felt like they were rooted to the ground, my body betraying me, my mind insisting I stay. The laugh returned, faint, echoing, layered over multiple voices. Whispers danced in the static, and then a final sound, the scream I had heard on the original call. Not a scream in the distance, not muffled, clear, direct, piercing, and it was mine, or so it sounded, or maybe it was theirs. I couldn't tell. The line distorted it, stretched it, fractured it into impossible layers. I pressed the microphone to my lips. My voice trembled. I can't see you. I don't understand. But I hear you. Please tell me. Who are you? The whispers ceased. Silence pressed down, heavy, complete, suffocating. I stood frozen, gripping the phone, waiting for a response, for any sign, any sound. And then, just as abruptly as it began, the line went dead. Static, a final, faint echo, almost like a sigh, lingered before fading entirely. The officers exchanged glances. "There's nothing here," one said. "No building. Nothing." I nodded, silent, heart still hammering, hands still shaking. I know what I heard. I whispered. It's gone, but it isn't gone. It's still out there. The street remained empty, normal, unremarkable. But I could feel in my bones. The house, the cries, the whispers, they had never needed a physical form to exist. They only needed to be remembered, witnessed, heard. And by keeping the line open, I had allowed them to continue, patient, waiting outside the boundaries of the real world. I left that night with the recording running, the whispers faint but present. I drove back to the station, unable to explain what had happened, unable to convey the weight, the intent, the persistence of it. Even now, I can play the recording and hear the whispers, faintly, impossibly, layered over static over the world, waiting for the next person who listens too closely. And I know, deep down, that they're patient, always, waiting for attention, for belief, for acknowledgement. The house might not exist anymore, but it doesn't need to. The voices, the presence, the terror, they never leave. They simply wait. And when someone else calls, when someone else listens, it will answer. I was only supposed to be on a routine night shift, answering calls, noting reports, keeping my voice calm while chaos unfolded somewhere else. But that night felt different from the moment it started. The call came in just after midnight. A man, voice low and hesitant at first, asking if this was 911. I confirmed, and his tone shifted, sharp, tense, almost urgent. I'm at the Crestwood Hotel, he said. Room 417. Something wrong is happening. I jotted down the address, the details of his registration. Sir, can you tell me what's happening? Are you in danger? He swallowed audibly. I could hear it even over the phone. I don't know. I heard noises. Sound that shouldn't be there. Doors opening, whispers, like someone is moving around inside the room. But the room is supposed to be vacant. I froze for a second, surprised. Hotels sometimes have maintenance issues. People sneaking into rooms. strange neighbors, but vacant rooms? That was different. My instincts went sharp. Sir, when did you check in? He hesitated. About an hour ago. I was given the key by the front desk. I asked if any rooms were empty, and they said 417 hasn't been used in months. I thought it was a mistake. But I opened the door, and I swear I heard movement. I pressed my pen against my notebook, trying to keep calm. Movement? Can you describe it? Like footsteps, he whispered. Soft but deliberate. A door slamming whispers. Sometimes it sounds like someone's laughing or crying. I can't tell. I thought I was imagining it, so I called down the front desk, and they said no one should be there. I leaned forward in my chair. The building, the hotel. There was nothing on the roster indicating occupancy. Nothing that should explain what he was hearing. Sir, do you see anyone inside the room right now? He paused, his breath shaky. No, that's the thing. I keep looking. I even peek down the hallway. Nothing. But the sounds, they move. They're coming from inside the room, but they're not static. They're alive, I think, watching me. A chill ran down my spine. I have heard plenty of calls that were bizarre, unsettling, impossible. But this had a weight to it. Like something had followed him into the hotel. Or maybe was waiting there all along. Sir, I want you to stay calm. Stay in a safe area. Maybe the lobby. Can you do that? He swallowed again, and I could hear the panic edging into his voice. I don't know. I can't leave. Not yet. I'm scared, okay? I just want someone to listen. Please just listen. I nodded to myself. I hear you. I'm listening. Tell me everything you notice. Every sound, every movement, every whisper. Just stay on the line with me. And then it started. A faint noise at first. A creak, almost imperceptible, but distinct enough that even over the line, I could hear it. It was in the background, subtle, deliberate. Then another, soft at first. A shuffling, like someone walking slowly across carpet. I leaned closer. My pen paused mid-note. Sir, can you describe where it's coming from? Inside the room, he said, voice trembling. I've peeked in through the door. It's empty. No furniture moved. Nothing out of place. But I hear it. Something, it's moving around. A door opened. Sharp, abrupt. I flinched. He flinched. I just heard it. He whispered. I don't know how it shouldn't be there. I pressed my lips together. The way his voice trembled. The way the panic came through. This wasn't a prank. Not a simple mistake. There was something wrong. And I needed to keep him calm. Keep him talking. Sir, are the sounds repeating? Or random? I asked. They repeat, but not in a pattern I understand. Sometimes it's footsteps pacing. Sometimes it's soft murmuring. Sometimes it's laughter. Sometimes crying. It moves around like it's aware of me. And sometimes it feels like it's right behind me, even when I know I'm alone. I felt my chest tighten. The way he said it, it wasn't just fear. It was certainty. He knew something was wrong. Something impossible. I tried to ground him. Sir, you said the room is supposed to be empty, yes? Are there other guests on your floor? He shook his head, even though I couldn't see him. No. I asked the desk. They said the room's been closed off for months. No one else should be here. No housekeeping, no maintenance, nothing. And yet, I can hear them. I can hear something inside the room. The line crackled suddenly, static filling the space between us. And then a faint whisper, just a syllable, almost imperceptible, but there, clear enough that I caught it immediately. My pen froze mid-note. He gasped, "Did you hear that?" "Yes," I said, voice tight. "Yes, I heard it. What did it sound like?" I can't describe it," he said. "It's not a word. It's like it's calling me. And there's more now. Multiple voices. Whispering. Laughing. Screaming. I think they know I'm here. They know I'm listening." My hand shook slightly. Dispatchers are trained to stay calm. But my stomach was tight, my ears ringing. This call was different. It wasn't just fear over the line. It was alive. The sounds pressed at me through the phone, thin as it was, carrying intention. Sir, you need to stay in the lobby. I want you safe. I'm going to send someone to check. Do you have your phone on you? Yes, yes, he whispered. But I don't want to move. I don't want to leave the room. I don't want to leave. They're watching. Okay, I said, voice steady despite my own trembling. Then stay on the line. Keep talking to me. Tell me everything you hear, everything you feel. He inhaled sharply, footsteps pacing. Someone walking slowly across the room. And laughter. High-pitched, soft, like a child, but wrong. And whispers. Dozens of voices now layered. Saying my name, calling me. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Keep breathing. You're doing fine. You're safe. We're going to help you, I said, repeating the phrases I had learned to say 1,000 times. But even as I said them, I felt that same weight he described, pressing it on me. Alive. Patient. Watching. The line hissed again, static flowing over like liquid. A sudden clatter. Something heavy hitting the floor. He screamed, high, raw, and I flinched. They're here, he shouted. Someone or something is inside the room. Sir, stay calm. Tell me what you see. I urged. Nothing. I see nothing. But it's moving. I hear it pacing, whispering, laughing. It's right behind me. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. Sir, stay on the line. Don't turn around. Keep moving to a safe place if you can, but don't leave the phone. Another whisper cut through the static. My stomach lurched. I pressed the mic closer. Do you hear that? Yes. Yes. That's them. They're speaking. Multiple voices overlapping. Calling me. I can't stand it. And then, abruptly, silence. The line went dead for a second, then back. Quiet but faint now. A whisper, almost imperceptible. Stay. I pressed the buttons frantically. Sir, are you there? Please respond. Static, and then a final sound. A scream. Piercing. Raw. Shredding. And then nothing. I stayed on the line for the next hour. Trying to call back, trying to trace him, but the phone refused. Dead signal. And the memory of that call, the laughter, the whispers, the pacing remained. I knew the room was empty, or supposed to be, but somewhere in that space, something waited, something aware, patient, and it had answered the call. I've never forgotten that night. The way it pressed against reality, bending what I thought I knew. And I know, even now, that the room is still there or not there, waiting. And the next traveler might answer the call and hear the whispers, the laughter, the pacing. And I'll be listening too. I had barely settled into the hotel room before I realized something was off. It started as a soft sound, almost too subtle to notice, like a faint vibration running through the walls. At first, I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was the pipes, the air conditioning, the building settling. But then the whispering began. Soft, deliberate, like someone was standing behind the wall, speaking directly to me. I froze at first, thinking it was my imagination. The line between reality and fear can blur in those quiet hours of night, especially when you're alone in a room that shouldn't be occupied. Hello, I whispered into the phone. The 911 operator's calm voice came through the headset, grounding me for a moment, reminding me that someone was listening. Yes, I hear something. I admitted, trying to keep my voice steady. There's whispering from the walls. It's not words I can understand, but it's there. It's alive. Static crackled over the line. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck rise. It wasn't just a whispering now. Something else was moving, scratching. A soft, deliberate scrape, like fingernails running over plaster. And each time I lifted my eyes from the phone to scan the room, I felt a pressure behind me, as if the sound itself were pressing against my shoulders, curling into my chest. I think it's coming from inside the walls, I said, voice trembling. It's moving. It's following me. I can hear it pacing, shifting. Sometimes I think it's right behind me, even though I know I'm alone. The line hissed, static cutting in and out. "Sir, can you tell me exactly what you're hearing?" the operator asked, voice calm but urgent. Footsteps," I said, swallowing hard. Soft, slow, deliberate, but layered like more than one person. But no one is here. And whispers, dozens of voices, laughing sometimes crying, and scratching, always scratching. On the walls, on the floor, I can't tell where it's coming from. It's all around me. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, trying to catch any detail. And that's when it happened. The first cut. The line went dead for a fraction of a second, replaced by scratching noises. Not the gentle scrapes I had heard before, but louder, sharper, deliberate. My heart jumped. I could feel the vibrations through the phone, through my fingers. I think it's cutting the line," I stammered. "Every time I try to talk, every time I try to call out, it scratches, like it doesn't want me to speak." The operator's voice returned, distant through the static. "Stay calm. Stay on the line. I need you to keep recording everything." I nodded, though I knew she couldn't see me. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. The scratching began again, moving through the walls, traveling from one corner to the next, following my movements. I turned slowly, scanning the room, trying to see if the sound had a source. But the walls were bare, the furniture untouched, nothing out of place. And yet, I could feel it, something just beyond perception, pressing against the plaster, bending the air, alive. I see shadows," I whispered. "Shadows moving, but wrong. They don't match anything in the room. They shift as I move, like they're waiting, mirroring me, but not me, following me, watching me." The line cut again, scratching, a rasping sound layered over it, almost like it was breathing through the wires. I gritted my teeth, trying not to panic. I had to keep talking, had to keep grounding myself. "Stay calm," I muttered myself, repeating it like a mantra. "It can't touch you. It's just sound. It's just sound." And then the whispers spoke. Not words, not yet, but syllables, just faint enough that I wasn't sure if I imagined them. But I hadn't. They were there, calling my name, mimicking my voice, warped and stretched, layered in the static. My stomach sank. "I hear it," I shouted. "It's whispering my name. It's repeating me." Static crackled violently. The phone line cut again. Scratching filled the headset, loud and deliberate, ringing through my skull. I pressed my hand to the wall, tried to trace the source, to feel for anything tangible. But there was nothing, just empty plaster, cold, solid, unbroken. And yet, the sound continued, moving, alive, intelligent. I don't understand." I whispered, tears forming. "I can't see it. I can't touch it. But it's here, watching me, following me." The operator tried to calm me, but her words sounded distant, drowned under the layering of voices, laughter, whispers, and scratching. I could feel my pulse in my temples, my breathing shallow, my hands trembling. Every rational part of me screamed to hang up, to run, to leave, but I couldn't. Something tethered me to the line, to the presence, to whatever lived in those walls. The scratches moved faster now, shifting with the rhythm of my steps, moving around the corners, crawling through the baseboards. The whispers became layered, a chorus of hundreds of tiny voices repeating fragments of words I didn't know, some familiar, warped, echoing. It wasn't human anymore, not fully, not real, and yet it existed, and it was aware. I pressed myself against the far wall, leaning down, voice shaking. I can't move. It's too close. I can hear it breathing now, over the scratching, right behind me, or inside me. I don't know. The line cut violently again. The scratching roared through the phone, ripping static across the signal. My ears rang. I stumbled, pressing the headset tighter, trying to hold it steady. The whispers returned, faint, repeating the word "stay," or maybe it was my own name again. I couldn't tell the difference. "I'm still here," I said, voice barely audible. "I'm still listening." I can hear you. I know you're there. Please, just leave me alone. I'm scared. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Shadows stretched, crawling across the walls, impossible angles, bending light that had no right to bend. I could feel it pressing against my mind, stretching my perception, twisting the edges of reality. My hands gripped the phone until they ached. And then, a final cut. Silence. Dead silence. I pressed the buttons frantically, trying to reconnect the line, trying to call out, trying to hear anything. The whispers were gone. The scratching stopped. And for a moment, I thought it was over. Relief washed through me, quick and shallow. Then a single whisper floated through the headset. My own voice. Clear. Echoed. Distorted. Layered. Stay. I dropped the phone, shaking, heart racing, stomach twisting. My legs buckled slightly. The walls seemed to pulse, faintly, subtly, as if alive, waiting for me to acknowledge them. I didn't want to. I wanted to close my eyes, cover my ears, scream, but I couldn't. Some part of me had to witness it, had to survive it. I picked the phone up again, voice trembling. I don't understand. I don't know what you are. I can't see you, but I hear you. You're in the walls. You're here. Static hissed over the line. Faint scratches, almost imperceptible now, but they're waiting, patient, persistent. And in the distance, I thought I heard laughter. High-pitched, warped, cruel, deliberate. I pressed my palms against my ears and leaned against the wall, shaking, tears streaming. Hours passed, though I couldn't tell how many. The line stayed live, but the presence withdrew, lingering faintly, whispering, scratching, layering voices over nothing. And yet, the moment I considered leaving, the sounds pressed closer, threatening, aware, intelligent. By the time help arrived, I was trembling, shaking, voice raw. They searched the hotel room, found nothing, no signs of anyone, no disturbances, no explanation. And yet I knew, I had heard it, felt it. The walls had been alive. The whispers had been real. And I know they're still there, waiting, listening, scratching from the inside. I didn't want to believe the security footage when I first saw it. Not because I doubted my own eyes, but because my mind couldn't make sense of what it was showing. The room had been empty. Officially, the hotel records, the housekeeping logs, the front desk notes, they all confirmed it. No one was supposed to occupy that room. And yet, the monitor told another story. I watched it for the 5th time that night, sitting in a small security office stacked with monitors, the hum of machinery filling the space. The footage was grainy, black and white, the kind of low-resolution camera that should have been incapable of catching subtle movement. And yet, there was a figure. It appeared first as a ripple across the floor, a distortion in the image, subtle at first. Then, slowly, a shape formed. Human-like, tall and possibly thin. Its edges shimmered, flickered, like the image couldn't hold it properly. It stood for a second in the center of the room, facing a full-length mirror, and I swear I could see it breathing. Then, like someone pressed a fast-forward button, the figure vanished, just gone. No noise, no movement, nothing but the empty room, flickering slightly in the grain of the camera. I leaned closer to the monitor, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. This isn't possible, I whispered to myself. The operator on the other end of the headset asked if I was okay, and I could barely answer. My voice sounded small and fragile, even to me. You need to see this, I said finally. There's something in the room, and it disappears. I rewound the footage and watched again. The figure returned in the same place, at the same spot, standing still, facing the mirror. I could see a faint distortion of a face, or maybe a lack of one, nothing recognizable, blank, smooth, like polished porcelain. And yet, I felt its gaze pressing to the screen at me, aware, intentional. I took a deep breath. My heart was hammering. I've seen strange calls, heard strange voices, experienced a kind of fear that sinks into your bones. But this was tangible, on a monitor, documented, real, impossible but undeniably real. I pressed the call button on the line again. Sir or ma'am, do you see this? The footage? Yes, came the tense reply. I'm watching. What is that? I don't know, I admitted. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating to play the tape again. The figure flickered back into existence, slow, deliberate, almost like it knew I was watching. And then it moved, not across the floor, but against the laws of physics, bending in impossible ways, sliding along the walls, merging with shadows, disappearing and reappearing in the corner of the room, always facing the mirror. I leaned in, heart racing. It lifted one hand, or what I assumed was a hand, raised it, pressed it against the mirror's surface. The reflection didn't mimic the movement. The mirror was smooth, empty, as if the figure wasn't real at all, but distortion of some other world pressing through. And yet, I felt it looking at me, through me, into me. The scratching began again, not from a room, not from a camera, but in my headphones, faint at first, then louder, like fingernails scraping glass. I flinched. I knew the operator couldn't hear it. Only I could. The figure remained the monitor, still, perfectly still, but somehow moving, somehow alive. Do you see it? I asked the person on the line, my voice trembling. It's in the room, facing the mirror. I can feel it, watching, waiting, and the reflection, it doesn't exist. I pressed pause, heart hammering, trying to ground myself. But the memory of that face, or lack of face, was burned into my vision, smooth, blank, but aware. The silence of it pressed against me, making my chest tight, my stomach knotted. I could feel my pulse in my ears. I pressed play again. This time, the figure moved differently. It slid to the corner, bending impossibly around the walls, disappearing entirely for several seconds. Then, flicker, back at the center of the room, facing the mirror, motionless, waiting. I couldn't tell if it had been moving while invisible or if time itself had bent. My rational mind rebelled. Logic dissolved. Only fear remained. I whispered into the phone. It's not human. I can feel it. It's aware. And I think it can see us. I think it knows we're watching. Static crackled through the headset. Scratching noises, soft at first, then louder, urgent. I jumped, pressing the phone tighter. The operator's calm voice tried to pierce through the chaos. Stay calm. Keep your eyes on the footage. We need evidence. Can you describe what you're seeing? I swallowed hard. It's standing at the mirror, facing it. I can't tell if it's alive or dead or something else. It moves in ways that shouldn't be possible. Disappears, flickers, and I can feel it. I can feel it pressing through the glass, through the monitor, into my head. I can't describe it, but it's aware. I rewound the footage again, counting the seconds between appearances. Always precise, always deliberate, almost as if it was testing me, testing my perception. I pressed my lips together. My hands were shaking. My breath came shallow and fast. The scratching returned, synchronized with its reappearance. I tried to focus on the monitor, on the image, but the sound pressed into my skull, layering over the visual. I realized the figure wasn't just in the room. It was in the line, in the static, in the scratches. It was everywhere. And I knew then that it wasn't bound by walls, or mirrors, or logic. I whispered again. I see it. I know it's not supposed to be here. The room's empty. It shouldn't exist. But it's here. I can feel it, watching me, waiting. The operator asked if I could zoom in, capture the figure more clearly. I did. I watched as the camera attempted to focus. And the figure responded, shifting, flickering, aware. The grainy video could not capture it fully, could not contain it. And I realized the truth. It didn't want to be seen. Not fully, not clearly. It existed between perception and impossibility, thriving in that space. I pressed the pause button again, heart hammering, trembling, staring at the monitor. The figure remained in the frame, motionless, blank, facing the mirror. My chest burned. My throat ached. My hands shook. The silence pressed on me. And then, faintly, I heard the whispers. faint, almost inaudible, coming from the footage itself, layered over the static. My skin crawled. I can hear it. I whispered into the headset. Whispers, multiple voices, saying words I can't understand, calling me. The operator tried to respond, but their voice was distant, weak against the presence in the monitor. I realized then that this wasn't a simple haunting, not a prank, not a malfunction. The figure was aware, sentient, patient, and it had found a way to reach beyond the screen, beyond the walls, into my mind. I pressed the pause button one final time. Heart racing. The figure remained, motionless, facing the mirror, blank, empty, and yet I could feel its presence, its awareness, its patient attention. I could feel it watching, waiting, knowing that I could see it and that I feared it. I left the security office hours later, hands shaking, chest tight, recording saved, but my mind raw. I knew I hadn't imagined it. The figure existed. The room existed. Even if only in glimpses, only in distortion, only in perception. And I knew, deep down, that it would appear again. In another room, another mirror, another line of sight, waiting, watching, patient, and I would see it. I don't remember when I first noticed it. The hallway, at first, I thought it was just a trick of the eyes, a quirk of the lighting in the hotel. But then the flickering began. Subtle at first, a soft stutter of fluorescent bulbs, nothing alarming. But over the next few minutes, the rhythm changed, irregular, almost deliberate. My pulse started to speed without me even realizing it. I was still on the phone with 911, trying to explain what I had been hearing, what I had been seeing, when the corridor itself seemed to shift. I don't mean physically, walls moving like machinery, but perception bending, subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. A doorway seemed to stretch an inch longer. A corner expanded just slightly when I looked at it from the other side. "Hello," I whispered, voice trembling. "Can you hear me? I think the hallway is changing. I don't know. It's not right." The operator asked me to describe what I saw. I tried, but the words felt insufficient. It's like the corridor isn't fixed. The doors are moving. Not fully, just subtly, and the lights, they flicker, sometimes in patterns. I think it's aware I'm watching. It's waiting. I paused, staring down the hallway. The carpeting seemed longer than it had a moment ago. The walls leaned imperceptibly, then corrected themselves when I blinked. Shadows stretched unnaturally. They didn't correspond to anything. The fluorescent bulbs overhead cast a light that was too bright, then too dim, then stuttering again, creating pockets of shadow that seemed to breathe along with me. "I hear footsteps," I said, my voice trembling, soft, pacing, coming from nowhere and everywhere. It echoes oddly. And the walls. I swear, the walls are bending, stretching. I don't understand. The line crackled, static filling the gaps between words. "Stay calm," the operator said. "Keep your phone on you. Keep talking." I tried, but my hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold the device. Every time I stepped forward, the hallway seemed longer. Every time I turned, the doors shifted. A door I had just passed a moment ago seemed farther down now. The ceiling tilts ever so slightly, and I felt my balance waver, even though I knew logically nothing had changed. I think it's the room," I said, swallowing hard. "The room isn't fixed. The hallway outside, it's reacting to me, moving around me. I don't know how else to explain it." The operator asked if I could see anyone, any figure in the hallway. I shook my head, though I knew they couldn't see me. "No, nothing visible. But I can feel it. I can feel it in the air. It's aware, waiting. I don't know if it's inside the room or outside, or I don't know where it is, but it's here." My breathing grew shallow. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe fatigue, stress, the isolation of the hotel at night. Maybe the shadows, the flickering, were tricks my eyes played when I stared too long at dark corners. But my gut told me otherwise. There was intent here, intelligence, patience, and malice. I took a cautious step forward, careful to stay quiet. The lights overhead stuttered violently, casting my own shadow in jagged, impossible angles across the walls. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Every step I took seemed to stretch the corridor, and with each stretch, I could feel the pressure behind me, almost tactile, pressing against my back, crawling along my spine. I can hear whispers, I said, voice shaking, soft, layered, repeating my name, calling me, and footsteps, so many footsteps, and it's bending the hallway. I can't make sense of it. I don't know what's real anymore. Static hissed through the line. I pressed the phone to my ear, listening desperately for guidance, for some calm voice that would anchor me. But even the operator's words were swallowed by the corridor, distorted, echoing unnaturally, layer over faint scratching noises that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I turned my head slowly, scanning the hallway again. The doors had shifted farther down. The room numbers no longer aligned with the labels outside. The exit signs twisted slightly, flickering between red and green in a rhythm that didn't match the bulbs. The corridor itself seemed alive, aware of me, bending to my perception, feeding on my fear. I think I'm losing it, I whispered, gripping the phone tighter. The walls, the hallway, it's all changing. I can see shadows moving in ways that shouldn't be possible, behind doors that weren't there a moment ago, and the lights, they flicker in patterns, like it's trying to communicate. I don't know what to do. I moved forward carefully, listening. The whispers grew louder, faint syllables layered, overlapping. Not words, not yet, just fragments of sound that pressed into my skull. And then a footstep, not soft, but deliberate. Close. Behind me. I froze. My chest tightened. Hello. I called softly, almost pleading. The corridor remained empty. The walls still pulsed, imperceptibly, like they were breathing. Another footstep. Closer. But when I turned, nothing was there. Only the corridor stretching ahead. Doors sliding imperceptibly along the walls. Shadows bending impossibly. I can feel it. I whispered, voice barely audible. I can feel behind me, watching me, waiting. And the hallway, it's alive. It's changing, responding. To me, static hissed again, scratching layered over it. Soft at first, then louder, sharp, deliberate. I pressed the phone closer, heart hammering. I could feel sweat running down my back. My legs were weak, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the device. I can't leave, I admitted softly, almost to myself. I can't turn around. I can't stop moving. The corridor, it's bending, twisting, trying to trap me. I don't know if it's real or some hallucination, but it's aware, and it's patient. I swallowed hard. The hallway seemed to stretch farther with every breath I took. Doors I passed earlier were no longer behind me. Rooms that shouldn't exist appeared on either side. Shadows twisted dark and sharp, clinging to corners, waiting. I think it wants me to see it. I whispered, or maybe it wants me to follow. I don't know, but it's here. It's alive. The lights overhead flickered violently. My own shadow split and elongated across the walls, stretching impossibly. The scratching noise roared suddenly, synchronized with a flicker, making my ears ring. I pressed my palms to my ears, trying to block it out, but the pressure, the whispers, the shifting, all pressed into my skull, through my chest, through my stomach. I can't describe it. I admitted I can't understand it. The hallway, it's not fixed. It's bending, alive, aware. The lights, the shadows, the doors, it's all responding. And I don't know if it wants to hurt me or if it's just waiting. I stumbled forward, pressed against a wall, breath shaking. My reflection in the polished metal of a door frame flickered impossibly, distorted, warped. Something seemed to press from the other side of the surface, aware, patient, watching. I need help. I whispered. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's real. I'm scared. The line hissed. Static. A whisper, faint but distinct. Stay. I pressed the phone to my ear, trembling. The corridor stretched farther. The shadows twisted. The door slid slightly along the walls, and I realized it was still watching. Patient, aware, waiting. And I knew I wasn't safe. Not in the room. Not in the hallway. Not anywhere. I can still hear the call in my mind, even though it's been weeks. I replayed it endlessly, over and over, try to make sense of it, hoping I'd find some flaw, some explanation, anything that would make it real. But there isn't one. Not really. Only the fear and the memory and that second voice. It started like any other playback. I sat in the dispatch office, headphones pressed tight against my ears, the low hum of the monitors filling the space around me. My colleague had cued the recording. Just listen, she said softly. See if you hear anything you missed. The line came alive again. My own voice, shaky, panicked, trying to describe the room, the hallway, the whispers, the flickering lights. Every word I remembered speaking, every trembling syllable, carried back to me like it had been frozen in time. And then I heard it. Not the static, not the flickering, not the soft scraping of walls or the layered whispers I had spent that night imagining. No, this was different. A second voice. My voice. Every word I had just spoken repeated perfectly, as if someone or something was standing behind the microphone, mirroring me. I froze, headphones pressed too tightly against my ears. I could feel my heart hammering, like it wanted to escape my chest. No, that can't be, I whispered to myself. But the recording didn't pause. The repetition continued. Every tremble in my tone, every stammer, every terrified syllable, it was copied. Perfectly. Almost human, almost alive. My colleague leaned in, frowning. What is that? She asked softly. Her voice trembled slightly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too focused, too aware, too terrified. The first word repeated. My own syllable echoed back to me, slightly distorted but unmistakable. Then the second, then the third. Each repetition slightly delayed, layering over itself. And then something else. Beneath the mirrored voice, faint at first, almost beneath the static, a whisper. Not mine, not human. Something else, patient, deliberate, waiting. I can't. It's here. I whispered into the headphones, not realizing I was speaking aloud. My own voice trembled, raw, fragile. The repeated voice echoed, mirroring my panic. And the whisper grew louder, layered over it, synchronized with every heartbeat, every syllable. It was patient, malicious, observing, alive. The line didn't end. The call didn't stop. I pressed the pause button. Nothing. I rewound. The echoing voice returned immediately, perfectly aligned with my own. Every word mirrored. Every tremor, every falter, every broken syllable repeated by something. I don't know what. I wanted to scream, to run, to throw the headphones across the room, but I couldn't. I was anchored by the sound, trapped in the line, trapped by that presence. I leaned closer to the monitor, watching the levels spike. The original call's volume, the repeated voice, the whispering underneath. It was all layered together, forming a texture of sound I had never experienced before. Something living, something aware, something patient. And through it all, I realized something horrifying. It wasn't just repeating me. It knew me, every fear, every hesitation, every micro shiver of panic. It knew, and it waited for me to hear it, waited for me to realize it wasn't alone. My hands shook. I gripped the headphones tighter. Who is there? I whispered. My own voice was echoed immediately. Every syllable returned, warped, twisted, but unmistakable. And the whisper beneath it, soft, deliberate, almost a promise. Stay, stay. I froze. My mouth went dry. My legs felt weak. I wanted to tear the headphones off, to run, to never hear it again. But some part of me couldn't stop listening, couldn't stop trying to understand, couldn't stop trying to hear what it wanted. The repetition continued, synchronized with a whisper, until it began layering, overlapping, forming a cadence, almost like speech, almost like a rhythm, almost intelligent. My own words became meaningless. My own fear became a tool, a message, a bridge. And then silence, a pause, faint, almost comforting, like the calm before a storm. I exhaled shakily, leaning back in my chair. My colleague looked at me, pale, eyes wide. Was that real? She whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My own voice echoed faintly in my skull. The whisper lingered, just beneath perception. Alive, patient, waiting. I pressed play again. Same result. Every word repeated. Every syllable mirrored. Every tremble copied, layer upon layer. And then the final moment. The last word of my panic-filled sentence. It didn't stop there. The mirrored voice continued, repeating my last word over and over, elongating it, warping it, stretching it like taffy across time. The whisper beneath it grew into a rasping sound, a scratch against the eardrum, pressing, insistent. It wasn't just on the line anymore. It was inside my skull, pressing behind my eyes, curling in my stomach, crawling across my spine. I pressed the pause button violently. Nothing. Silence. Headphones off. The office felt too quiet, too bright, too alive. My heart thumped painfully. The call had ended. The line was dead. But the sound, my echo, the whisper, the repetition, remained. Inside me, I leaned back, head spinning, trying to rationalize it. Maybe a glitch, a playback error, a double track. But my gut told me otherwise. Glitches don't repeat fear. Glitches don't layer whispers beneath your own voice. Glitches don't wait, patient, watching, aware. I felt the weight of the presence press against me even after the recording ended. Faint whispers, lingering in the room, impossible to localize. My own heartbeat sounded amplified, echoing in my skull, and I realized something I hadn't wanted to accept before. It wasn't just on the line, not just in the recording. It had followed me. It had marked me. The patient repetition, the mirrored voice, the whispering, alive, intelligent, waiting, and it would return. I pressed play again. I couldn't stop myself. My own voice returned, trembling, echoed, mirrored, distorted. And beneath it, faint but unmistakable, the whisper, "Stay." I dropped the headphones. My hands shook violently. My chest heaved. My stomach twisted. My rational mind screamed for logic, for explanation, for anything. But the echo remained. Every word I had spoken, every fear I had uttered, was repeated back at me, layer upon layer, growing in awareness, growing in intelligence. I sat there for hours. The monitors hummed. My own breath filled the office. And I knew, deep down, that the room had claimed something from me. Not my body, not yet, but my voice, my fear, my perception. And through the recording, through the line, through the static, it would follow me, patient, waiting, aware. When morning came, the office felt empty. The line was dead. The call was saved. But the echo remained in my mind, repeating, layering, patient, waiting. And I realized then that I would never hear my own voice the same way again. That every whisper, every sound, every faint creak could be repeating me, could be watching, could be aware. And I knew, even if the recording was never played again, even if no one ever heard it, that I wasn't alone. Not that night. Not ever. I wasn't expecting much that night. The quiet hours of the dispatch office usually meant a lull, a few scattered calls about broken streetlights or minor traffic accidents. But then the phone rang, sharp and sudden, cutting through the low hum of the monitors. I answered, like I always did, trying to keep my tone steady, professional. 911, what's your emergency? I said, expecting the usual, and then I heard the voice. A child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, trembling, soft, barely able to speak. Please, help me. The voice whispered, shaky and terrified. Someone's in my house. I froze for a second, heart tightening. Calls from children were rare, and there was something raw, urgent, almost desperate in the tone. I asked the standard questions. trying to calm myself and the child at the same time. Where are you? What's your address? There was a pause. Then the voice shook even more. I don't know. I can't. Please, they're coming. I frowned. Sir, ma'am, are you alone? Can you tell me anything about where you are? Street, house number, anything. The child whimpered. I don't know. They said I can't tell anyone. I could feel my stomach nodding. My training kicked in. Stay calm, gather information, keep the caller on the line. But something was wrong. The line was clean, no background noise, no indicators of location. Just a soft, frantic breathing of a child and the occasional trembling whisper. Please, don't let them get me. I pressed on. It's okay. You're talking to me. You're safe for now. Can you tell me if you're inside a house? An apartment? Yes, but it's dark. The line cut out for a fraction of a second, then returned. They said I can't talk. Please, help me. I tried to trace the call, standard protocol, but my heart sank as I saw nothing. No record, no registered number, no traceable signal. I double-checked, thinking it was a glitch, but the system confirmed it. Anonymous, completely untraceable. I swallowed hard. Okay, I said softly, trying to sound reassuring. Stay on the line. I won't hang up. Just tell me what's happening. The child's voice was shaking now, almost breaking. They're in the hallway. I can hear them. They move like shadows, but not shadows. They're not human. Please don't let them take me. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Not fear the call itself, but that creeping, gnawing feeling that something impossible was happening, and I was only catching the edge of it. I took a deep breath. I'm here. I'm listening. Can you describe them? What do they look like? The child's voice quivered. I can't see them properly. They're dark. All dark. No face, just shadows. They move too fast, but quiet. And the walls bend. They follow me. I pressed a hand to my forehead, trying to focus. Logic screamed at me that a child's imagination could do strange things in fear. But the tone, the terror, it was genuine, raw, primal. And I knew, somehow, that this wasn't just imagination. Okay, I said, trying to calm myself as much as a child. You're safe for now. Stay in one place. Keep talking to me. I'm here. I'm listening. The voice trembled again. I don't want them to see me. Please help me. Don't let them take me. I could hear soft, almost imperceptible noises in the background. Nothing recognizable. Just a faint shifting, a quiet scrape, like something moving along walls. I asked about it, but the child only whispered that they're close. I can hear them, but they don't make noise like humans. Please, I'm scared. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of helplessness settle on my shoulders. Normally, I could dispatch units, trace calls, get help, but there was no address, no number. Only this terrified voice, soft, panicked, and real. I tried to keep the child talking. What's your name? I asked gently. A pause. Then, I don't know if I should. They said I can't, but it's me. I'm afraid. The static hummed slightly over the line, almost imperceptibly, but it made me tense. It wasn't interference. It felt deliberate, like the line itself was aware, vibrating with the presence of something unseen. I could feel my hands trembling. It's okay, I whispered. Just breathe. Stay on the line. Tell me what's around you. The child whispered, breath shaky. Walls, too many walls. They close and sometimes. I can hear whispers. Soft, like they're inside me. They know I'm here. Please, don't let them get me. The line went dead for a moment. My stomach dropped. Then it returned, faint, whispery. The voice had changed. Softer, almost layered over itself, like multiple versions of the child were speaking at once. Overlapping. Please, help. Please, don't let them take me. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain my composure. I'm here. I'm listening. Keep talking. Don't hang up. I won't leave you. The voice quivered, shaking with every word. They move like the shadows in my room, on the bed, inside the closet. They're always there, watching, waiting. I can't hide. I felt my throat tighten. It's okay. I hear you. You're not alone. Stay on the line. Just breathe. And then, for the first time, the voice laughed. Not a normal laugh. Low, hollow, echoing, layered as if dozens of voices were mimicking the child. And beneath it, faintly, almost imperceptibly, a whisper that wasn't the child. I froze. Who is that? I whispered into the phone. The laughter stopped abruptly. The child whimpered. Don't let them hear you. Please? I felt my stomach churn. The fear, raw and tangible, pressed down on me like a weight. I couldn't explain it, couldn't rationalize it. The line felt alive, aware, patient, waiting. I pressed the hold button briefly to alert a supervisor, hoping to get someone else on the line, someone to trace, someone to help. But the moment I released the button, the voice returned, louder, more urgent. They're coming, please. I gripped the phone tightly. My knuckles ached. My chest burned. Stay calm. Stay with me. I'm listening. I'm here. The static grew slightly, like a low vibration under the conversation. And I realized that the call wasn't just a call. It was more. Something beyond technology. Beyond human understanding. Something aware, patient, waiting. And it had chosen this line, this moment, this voice. The child whimpered, soft, terrified, desperate. Please don't let them take me. I pressed the speaker button, letting my voice fill the room. You're not alone. I'm here. I hear you. You're safe for now. The line went dead. I sat there, frozen, heart hammering, staring at the silent phone. No trace of the number. No address. No way to help. Only that terrified, soft, fragile voice echoing in my mind. A presence I couldn't forget. A call that should never have reached me. From a place that may not exist. And I knew, deep down, that the child hadn't lied. Whatever was out there, whatever had taken hold of that line, that voice, that room, it was patient. And it was waiting. I picked the phone back up, but there was nothing. No trace. Just the memory. Just the fear. And the knowledge that I hadn't truly hung up. I thought the first call was a fluke. Something odd. Something impossible, but explainable. But when the next call came, I realized that impossibility had a pattern, and it was growing. It started with a static. Soft. Faint at first, a low hum beneath the voice of the child I had spoken to. I thought maybe it was just interference. The line picking up some random noise. But then the voice changed. Subtle at first. Almost indistinguishable beneath the child's trembling tones. And then I realized it wasn't random at all. It knew my name, not in the casual way someone on the street might call out to you. This voice, layered beneath the child's terrified whispers, spoke with certainty, intimate knowledge. And then it began to recount things only I would know, tiny fragments of my life, details I hadn't shared with anyone, private memories. I froze, my fingers tightened around the phone. Who is this? I whispered, voice shaking. No answer, only the static, humming softly, then forming words. You. The first night on this desk, shaking, nervous, thinking you could handle it alone, your coffee spilled, your supervisor laughed. I swallowed hard, trying to force reason into my mind. Maybe the call had been routed incorrectly. Maybe it was a trick, some cruel joke, but no one could know those details. Not without being here. Not without listening before. Watching. Where were you? I asked softly. My voice trembled, barely audible. The line crackled. Static swirling like it had a texture. I'm everywhere and nowhere. The desk you sat at. The papers you spilled. The first night you stayed late. The quiet. The hum of the monitors. All of it. I remember it. My breath caught in my throat. Every hair on my arm stood on end. The dispatcher before me had dealt with odd calls, with strange voices, with children in danger. But this wasn't normal. The voice wasn't pleading. It wasn't crying. It wasn't human. It was observing, intimate, patient. I tried to trace the call again. Maybe there was a clue, a number, a signal, anything, but the system returned nothing. Anonymous, ghosted, untraceable. And the voice continued, layering itself under the static, recounting moments of my past I hadn't even thought about in years. The desk lamp broke when you leaned over it. The call that lasted 3 hours, your mother's voice. Faint on the line, asking if you were eating. I froze. It knew. Every tiny fragment. Every memory. Even the ones I had buried deep. How could it know? My mind spun, racing for a rational explanation, for anything that could make sense of it. I don't understand. Who is this? I whispered. The voice didn't answer immediately. It hummed, crackled, then spoke again. I am the line. I am the whisper. I am listening. And I have always been. I shivered, pulling the phone slightly away from my ear, though I couldn't let go completely. What do you want? I asked, voice low, trembling. Only that you remember, it said. The first time you thought you were alone, the first scream that went unheard, the soft cries that slipped through the night, you will hear them, and they will be yours. My stomach churned. I tried to push back, try to force reason into the impossible. But the memories it described were too specific, too personal. I could see them in my mind as it spoke. Moments I hadn't thought of in years, moments I had buried under work and sleep, moments I had told no one. I heard the child's voice again, faint, trembling, layered over the recounted memories. Please help me. And beneath it, the new voice, smooth and deliberate. You helped them, or tried to. You called, you listened, you stayed, but you can't save them. You never could. And now you will listen to me. I pressed the phone to my ear, voice trembling. I'm listening. I don't understand. I'm here. Good. It whispered, and then it started again, recounting more. The first day my mother dropped me off at school, the first time I got lost on the bus, the night I stayed up too late, writing in my journal, the tremor of my own fears. Each memory overlapped with the child's whispers, forming a rhythm, a cadence, something almost hypnotic. I felt lightheaded, my vision blurred slightly. I gripped the edge of my desk. The hum of the monitors, the static, the whispers, they weren't just sounds. They were walls pressing in, folding time, bending space. My memories, my fears, my failures, they were no longer mine alone. I don't understand, I said softly, almost pleading. You will, it replied, layered beneath the static, as though it had been listening to me my entire life. Everything you have forgotten, everything you have hidden, all of it, I hold it, and it will follow you. I felt sweat run down my back, prickling my spine. I wanted to hang up, to shut it out, to pretend it wasn't happening. But I couldn't. Some part of me was anchored, drawn to it, afraid to let go, afraid that if I did, I'd lose the thread, and whatever presence had claimed this line would slip further, deeper, into somewhere I couldn't escape. The child whimpered softly again. Please, don't leave me. The line crackled violently, and the voice overlapped with itself, repeating fragments of my past and the child's pleas, the memories colliding in a chorus of sound that felt alive, patient, and hungry. I pressed the speaker button and spoke aloud, voice shaking. I hear you. I'm here. I'm listening. Please stop tormenting me. It laughed softly, a sound that wasn't entirely human, layered beneath the static, echoing faintly in my skull. Torment? No, I am the mirror. I am the memory. I am what you cannot forget. And you will not hang up. You will listen. You will remember. I felt my hands tremble violently, my chest constricted. The static rose in intensity, forming a texture, a pattern I couldn't describe. It wasn't noise anymore. It was alive, listening, waiting. And beneath it, the child's voice repeated faintly, almost fading, Please, don't let them find me. I tried to take a step back from the desk, but the air felt thick, heavy, almost viscous. The line, the voice, the static. It pressed against me, seeped into me, into my thoughts. I could no longer tell where my memories ended and its presence began. "Who are you?" I whispered again, voice trembling, barely audible. "I am the static, the echo, the child, and everything you have ever feared." It replied softly, "I am patient. I am aware. I am watching. And I will follow you through every line, through every whisper, through every memory you have tried to forget." I pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to block it out, trying to regain control. My head throbbed. My ears rang. The child's voice, the static, the mirror recollections, they all collided, forming a wall of sound and memory that pressed into me from all sides. And then, suddenly, silence. I lowered my hands, heart hammering. The line was dead. The office was quiet. The monitors hummed. But the memory, the presence, remained, embedded in me, patient, waiting, aware. I knew it wasn't over. I knew that line, that voice, that impossibility, it would return, and it would know more. It would remember more. And I, helpless, trapped, terrified, would have to listen. Because some things, once they have entered the line, once they have found a voice, never leave. I answered call like I always did, calm, steady, professional. 911 was my world, and I prided myself on staying collected even when other people couldn't. But the moment her voice came through the line, I felt that first small tug of unease, like the air around me had shifted. It's coming from beneath the house," she whispered, voice tight, trembling. I don't know what it is, but it smells awful, like decay, and I think there's someone down there." I swallowed hard and asked the routine questions. "Ma'am, can you tell me your address?" She hesitated. Her breathing was shallow. I've been in this house for years. I've never noticed it before. I don't know what's down there, but I can hear them. Murmurs, soft voices, whispering. I can't understand the words, but I know they're talking about me." I felt a chill creep up my spine, subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I had dealt with strange calls before, false alarms, overactive imaginations, but something in her voice made me pause. Not fear exactly, not panic, but sincerity, raw, unfiltered terror. "Okay," I said gently, "I'm going to stay on the line with you. Can you describe the smell? You said it's like decay?" "Yes," she whispered. Her voice trembled, almost breaking. "Rotting flesh or something dead. It's strong, overpowering. I can't sleep. I feel it in my chest, in my throat. It makes me sick. And the murmurs, they're everywhere, under the floorboards, inside the walls. I can hear them move." I pressed the phone closer, trying to pick up any background noise, any clue. But all I could hear was her breathing, shallow, quick, and faintly, almost imperceptibly, the soft shift of something moving. I couldn't tell if it was her house, settling, or something else entirely. "Has anything like this happened before?" I asked softly, trying to anchor her and myself to logic. She shook her head, though I couldn't see her. "No, never. It started last night. I thought maybe it was the wind or the pipes, but then I heard them. Murmurs, words, names, my name. I can't get away from it." Her fear was tangible, like a thick, clinging fog over the phone line. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Okay, I want you to stay where you are. Stay in one place. Don't go down there. Do you have anyone with you?" "No," she whispered. "I'm alone. Always alone at night. And it's worse then. I can hear them clearer. They're waiting." I pressed on, trying to gather information. "Waiting for what? Can you describe the murmurs? Do they sound like voices, you know?" Her breath caught. "No, not human. Not like anyone I've ever known. Sometimes it sounds like people talking, arguing, calling, but the words change. I can't make sense of it. And sometimes it feels like they're right behind me. But when I turn, nothing's there, but I can hear them moving. Always moving. Beneath the floor. Beneath the walls." I shivered, though I tried not to show in my voice. I had heard reports of basements, houses with strange noises, old plumbing critters. But something about her description, so vivid, so real, made me uneasy. "Okay," I said gently. "Can you check your doors and windows? Make sure everything is locked? Keep yourself safe while we try to figure out what's happening." "I did," she whispered. "All of it. Everything. Locked. Barricaded. But I can still smell it. I can still hear them. They're right beneath me." I paused, trying to focus, to think, to stay professional. But even as I did, I couldn't ignore it. The subtle sensation crawling along my spine, as though I could almost smell it too, like the air in the room around me had changed. And I wasn't even in her house. Can you tell they're visible? Have you seen anything?" I asked softly. "No," she whispered. "Not yet, but I feel them, watching, moving, waiting, and sometimes I think I can hear them laughing." I felt my stomach tighten. A laugh, not joyful, not human, low, shifting, layered, just beyond comprehension. "Okay," I said slowly. "I want you to stay with me. Don't go down there. Keep talking to me. Can you do that?" "Yes," she whispered. I can. I want to. I'm scared, but I don't want to be alone." Her fear pressed against me across the phone line. I tried to keep my voice calm, soothing, professional. "Good. We'll get through this together. I'm here. Keep describing what you hear, what you smell. Every detail is important." She inhaled shakily. "It smells worse when I breathe. The air is thick, like the walls themselves are rotting. I can hear them whispering names. My name, my name." I swallowed hard. I tried to take deep breaths, steady myself. I had been a dispatcher long enough to stay calm in crises. But something about this wasn't a normal emergency. Something about the way she described it. The smell, the voices, the shifting presence. It felt alive. "Are you near the basement?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered. I didn't want to go down there, but it feels like it's calling me, pulling me down. And when I step back, it's louder. The whispers, the murmurs, they're louder. I think they want me there. But I can't go down there. I pressed on gently. "Don't. Stay where you are. We'll figure it out. Can you describe the sound? Is it one voice, many voices?" "Many layered, overlapping, soft, quiet, but insistent. And sometimes I think I hear words I know, things only I know, secrets, things I've never told anyone." My heart thudded in my chest. She sounded lucid, terrified, but precise. The things she described weren't hallucinations. They were details only she could know. And the line itself carried a weight, like the presence beneath her house was pushing through it, brushing against my consciousness. I pressed the phone closer. "Okay, we'll keep talking. I'm not leaving you. You're not alone. Describe everything you can. Every sound, every smell, every shift in the air." She whispered, trembling. It's moving, shifting, under the floor, behind the walls. I can hear it breathe. And sometimes I think it's smiling, waiting for me to step closer, waiting for me to notice it. I swallowed hard. My fingers ached from gripping the phone. My chest tightened. And I knew, deep down, that whatever was beneath the house, it wasn't human. And it wasn't going to wait patiently forever. "Stay where you are," I whispered, voice soft, careful. "Keep talking to me. You're not alone. I'm listening. I'm here." There was a pause, a faint shuffling, almost like something brushing against the floorboards. She gasped, terrified. They know I'm talking to you. I can hear them moving faster now. The air, it feels thick, heavy. I can't breathe. Just keep talking. Breathe slowly. Stay with me," I said, though my own chest tightened with fear I couldn't shake. The line trembled. Faint murmurs, impossible to place, threaded beneath her whispers. I could almost hear it too, subtle, crawling, patient, waiting. And then her voice cracked, barely audible. "Please, don't let them get me." I swallowed hard, fingers white around the receiver. I won't. I'm here. I'm listening. Stay with me. And the line went silent. I sat there, frozen, heart hammering, staring at the dead phone. No movement, no sound, just the faint hum of the monitors. The smell, the voice, the murmurs, they lingered in my mind. Too vivid, too precise, too real to be imagination. And I knew, even if the call never resumed, even if she never spoke again, whatever was beneath that house had been patient. It had been listening, and it would not leave. I thought the first call had shaken me enough. The one about strange smells and murmurs beneath the house. I thought I had processed it, filed it under impossible but real to the caller, and moved on. But then the next call came, and that fragile sense of control slipped away entirely. The line was quiet at first, almost too quiet. I could hear the faint hum of the monitors in the office, the distant clatter of keyboards from the other dispatchers. And then I heard it, soft at first, barely distinguishable over static, but unmistakable footsteps. They were slow, careful, deliberate, descending. I froze. My hand tightened around the receiver. "Hello," I whispered. The woman on the line hesitated. Her voice shook, trembling in fear. I didn't hear anything at first, but it's coming from the basement. I swallowed hard. The basement? Yes, she whispered, almost inaudible. But there shouldn't be a basement. I mean, I've lived here for years. There's no staircase. Nothing. I checked, but the footsteps, I can hear them descending. My chest tightened. I wanted to dismiss it, rationalize it, pipes, settling foundations, maybe an animal, but something about the certainty in her voice, the way she paused and listened, made me hesitate. The fear in her tone was tangible, raw, primal. "Okay," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice calm, even as my own heart raced. "Stay where you are. Don't investigate. Can you tell me more about the sound? The footsteps. They're ever slow, not human, but measured, as if someone or something is aware I'm listening. I can hear each step, the scrape of shoes or claws on the wood, the weight shifting, descending, moving closer to wherever I am." I swallowed again, feeling a chill run down my spine. I'd heard about basements before, old houses with hidden spaces, doors behind walls, false floors, but this was different. She knew instinctively that the staircase shouldn't exist, and yet the sound was undeniable. "Did you see them?" I asked softly. "No, not yet," she whispered, "but I can feel them, watching, waiting, and sometimes I think I can hear breathing, heavy, slow, deliberate. And the shadows," she trailed off. "The shadows," I prompted. "Yes, they move, even when the lights are on. They shift along the walls, the corners, stretching toward me. I can't explain it. And the footsteps, they're coming closer." My stomach twisted. I gripped the edge of the desk with one hand, while holding the phone with the other. This wasn't a normal emergency. This wasn't a trick or a false alarm. This was something else entirely. Something patient, something aware. "Stay calm. Stay in one place. Don't go down there. Keep talking to me," I said, trying to steady my own voice even as a tremor ran through it. "I can't stop hearing them," she whispered. "Each step heavier than the last. And the shadows, they follow. They move in ways, wrong ways, unnatural ways. I can't look directly, or they shift, watching, waiting." I pressed the phone closer, trying to hear any other cues, any clue I could relay to emergency responders. But all I could detect was a faint sound she described, something moving beneath her floor, brushing along walls. It was almost musical in its rhythm, deliberate, almost ceremonial. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was imagining it, stressed by the first incident, tired, scared. But then she whispered a detail that froze my blood. They know I'm talking to you," she said softly, voice trembling. "They're aware. Every word I say, every breath I take, they know. And the footsteps, they're not random. They're searching. looking for me. I swallowed hard. My chest tightened. I wanted to tell her it would be okay. That help was on the way. That there was a logical explanation. But even as I opened my mouth, a part of me shivered. A part of me knew it wasn't safe. That the sound, the presence, the shadows, they weren't bound by logic or reason. Can you describe the staircase? The steps? I asked carefully. I don't see it, she whispered, but I hear it. Smooth wood, polished, creaking slightly like it's ancient. And the steps descend, twisting, spiraling, further than they should into darkness that doesn't exist under this house. And every step closer, heavier, deliberate. I felt my palms grow sweaty. I could almost feel the weight she described pressing into the room through the phone line. My stomach churned. Something in that sound, something in that rhythm, felt aware, calculated, watching, waiting. Okay, I said softly, forcing my voice to stay calm, even as my own pulse raced. Stay with me. Keep talking. Tell me everything you hear, everything you smell, everything you feel. She inhaled shakily. I can smell it too, the decay, the rot, worse than the last night. It's stronger now, almost overwhelming. And I think they're feeding off it. The shadows, the steps, something waiting. I swallowed hard, chest tightening. My fingers gripped the phone, knuckles white. Just keep talking. Don't go down there. Stay where you are. You're not alone. I'm listening. The line grew quiet for a moment, the hum of static rising slightly. Then, faintly, the footsteps resumed, soft, deliberate, descending, slow, each step echoing through my mind as much as through her walls. I could almost hear them, almost feel them. They're moving faster, she whispered, closer, under the floorboards, following me, waiting. I pressed the phone closer. Keep talking. Tell me what happens next. Don't hang up. The shadows seemed to shift as she spoke. Faint murmurs overlapped her voice, unintelligible, layered over the footsteps. Something about the combination of sound, voice, static, footsteps made the room around me feel heavier, like the air itself had weight. They want me to move, she whispered. But I can't. I can't go down there. Not yet. And the shadows, they're thickening. Watching. Waiting. Always waiting. I swallowed hard. Stay where you are. Keep talking. Focus on your breathing. You're safe as long as you stay where you are. I'm listening. Her whisper was almost lost in the static. I think I see a shadow moving along the floorboards. Following the steps and the stairs, they spiral down into nothing, and I can't see where it ends. But I can feel it. I can feel it watching me. I felt a chill crawl over my spine, involuntarily. The hairs on my arms stood up, my stomach twisted, and I knew, somewhere deep inside, that the presence she described, the impossible staircase, the shadows, the weight beneath her floorboards, it wasn't something that could be reasoned with, mapped, or explained. I'm scared, she whispered. Her voice broke, trembling. I know, I said softly. I know you're scared. You're not alone. Stay with me. Don't move. Don't go down there. I'm listening. The footsteps paused. Silence. Only the soft hum of static. Then, faintly, a whisper. A voice, almost human, almost familiar, layered beneath the static, beneath the fear. Waiting, always waiting. She gasped, and I could hear the tremor in her chest, the rapid intake of breath. They know I'm listening to you too. They're aware. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. Stay calm. Don't move. I'm here. I'm listening. You're not alone. And then the line went dead. I sat there, frozen, hands gripping the phone. The office around me was quiet, the monitors humming, the keyboards tapping distantly. But the memory of those descending footsteps, of that impossible staircase, of shadows moving along walls that should not exist, it pressed into me, heavy, patient, watching. And I knew, even if she survived, even if help arrived, even if the call resumed, what she had described would never leave her. The shadows, the stairs, the weight of something aware and impossible. They had found her, and they were patient. And I knew, deep down, that some things, once they move in the dark, cannot be stopped. The line went silent for a moment after the last call. That impossible descent of footsteps. The whispers, the presence beneath the floorboards. I kept the phone at my ear, heart still racing, waiting, listening. And then it rang again. Her voice came through, frantic, trembling, raw with terror. It's worse now," she whispered, almost panting. I don't know how. I don't know why, but it's here, under me, beneath me." I gripped the receiver tighter, forcing myself to stay calm. "Okay," I said softly. "Tell me exactly what's happening. Keep your voice steady. We're going to figure this out together." She inhaled shakily. I can hear chains. Chains dragging, scraping across the wood beneath me. And moans. Low, guttural, not human. It's alive, it's coming. I can feel it. Pulling, trying to drag me down. Into the floor. Into, I don't know where. My stomach twisted. I had heard strange calls before. Odd noises in old houses. The creak of floors. Maybe a stray animal. Maybe faulty pipes. But the word she used, the fear in her voice, it was something else entirely. And her certainty, the way she spoke about being pulled down, made my blood run cold. "Stay where you are," I said, voice calm but tense. "Don't go near the floor. Sit still. Focus on me. Tell me exactly what you're hearing." I'm trying," she whispered. It's everywhere. The moans low, dragging, and the chains. I can hear them pulling, scraping, rattling. I can feel the vibration through the floor, through my feet. It's reaching for me. I swallowed hard. My palms were sweating. My chest tightened. Even though I wasn't in the house, I could feel it. An oppressive, almost tangible weight pressing through the line. "Can you see anything?" I asked softly. "No, I can't see it, but I can feel it moving. Beneath me, around me. I think it wants me to step closer. I try to move back, but I can feel it pulling at my feet, trying to drag me down." I pressed the phone closer to my ear. The static hummed softly in the background, almost blending with her voice, with the imagined rattle of chains. I could feel her panic through the line, and it was contagious. My hands trembled slightly, though I forced myself to keep talking, to keep her anchored. "Focus on your breathing," I said softly. "Take slow breaths. You're not alone. You're safe as long as you stay in place. Don't move toward the sound." "I can't. It's stronger now," she whispered. "I can feel it, claws, chains pulling at my legs, pulling at my arms. I don't want to fall, but it's dragging me. It's pulling me closer. I can hear the moans, the voices, singing, laughing." I swallowed hard. Every instinct told me to tell her to hang up, to get away, to stop listening, to stop participating in whatever this was. But the thought of leaving her alone, trapped with this presence, terrified me even more. "Stay with me," I said firmly. "Do not let go of the phone. Tell me everything you feel, everything you hear. I'm here. You're not alone. I'm listening." She gasped. The line vibrated faintly with a new sound. The chains metallic, dragging across wood or stone, closer now, louder, and beneath it, a low moan, long and guttural, as if the floor itself were alive. It's stronger," she whispered, trying to pull me in. I can feel my feet, my legs, moving against me, but it's too strong. I'm screaming, but no one can hear me. I don't want to go. I don't want to go." Her voice cracked. I could hear tears in her whispers, trembling breaths, short gasps, choked sobs. And then, as if layered beneath her panic, the voice of something else, a low, wet, dragging, distorted voice, almost repeating her words. "Don't want to go. Don't want to go. Don't want to go." I felt a chill run down my spine, the hairs on my arms standing up. I had heard stories before about echoes, about things mimicking sound, repeating trauma. but never like this. Never so intimate, so aware, so personal. I can feel it, she whispered, dragging me closer, closer. I can't move. It's pulling me. I'm falling. Her words broke off into a scream, loud, raw, a mixture of terror, pain, and disbelief. The static on the line thickened, crackling and humming. I held my breath, pressing the receiver closer, heart hammering, and then a pause. Silence. Only the faint hum of the monitors in the office. My chest ached, muscles tense, as if holding a weight I couldn't see. I whispered her name, softly, but there was no answer. The line was dead. I sat there, hands gripping the phone, heart racing, unable to shake the impression of those chains, those moans, the sensation of something alive and patient pulling from beneath the floorboards. My mind replayed her words, her fear, the dragging, the inevitability of being pulled down. I couldn't explain it. I tried rationalizations. Perhaps she had tripped. Perhaps it was her imagination heightened by fear and darkness. But something about the way she described it, the dragging, the weight, the chains, the repetition of her own voice in that distorted, almost sentient echo, was wrong, impossible, and yet undeniably real. I tried to call her back. The line rang. Nothing. Dead again. I leaned back in my chair, hands still gripping the phone. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The chains, the moans, the dragging. How could a floor that shouldn't exist contain something that wanted to pull her in? And if it could reach through the floorboards, through the walls, through the lines, how far could it reach? I felt my fingers tremble. My chest tighten again. The memory of the sound pressed against me, faintly, like it had seeped into my own room, my own mind. I could almost hear the chains dragging, the low moans, the echo of her scream. I realized, in that moment, that some things weren't bound by walls or floors or logic. Some presences, some horrors, could extend beyond their physical space, threading themselves into fear, into memory, into sound itself. And I knew, deep down, that she was not alone. Whatever had reached out from beneath that house, whatever had used chains and moans and dragging to terrify her, it had found her, and I had listened. I could still hear in my mind the scrape of chains on wood, the low moan, guttural and alive, the sound of someone or something pulling relentlessly from beneath the floorboards, waiting, patient, deliberate, and I knew, even if I never heard from her again, even if authorities arrived and found nothing, the presence had left a mark, not just on her, not just on the house, but on the line itself, on the memory of it, on me. Some things, once they reach the floorboards, through the walls, through the phone line, once they find a voice, they never let go. The phone line went dead, sharp and sudden, like someone had just ripped it from the wall. I froze, fingers clutching the receiver, staring at the empty screen. I could still hear the faint hum of the monitors around me, the distant chatter of other dispatchers, the subtle tapping of keyboards, but everything from her line had vanished. No chains, no moans, no whispering, just silence. For a moment, I thought maybe she had hung up in panic. Maybe the phone had cut out. My mind tried to rationalize it, to explain it away, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. I tried to call her back immediately. The line rang once, twice, 3 times, and then it went dead again. Not busy, not disconnected, dead, complete silence. I sat back in my chair, pressing the receiver to my chest, heart hammering. I couldn't shake the memory of her voice, the terror, the pleading, the dragging. Even though I wasn't there, even though I had only heard it over the line, I felt it in my chest, in my stomach, in the small hairs along my arms standing on end. Dispatch was in motion. Someone was going to send officers to check the house. I relayed the address, gave a brief overview, careful to avoid overloading them with details that sounded impossible. Chains, footsteps in a non-existent basement, moans, dragging, shadows. But when they arrived, nothing. Not a staircase, not a basement. The house was ordinary, normal in every sense. No secret doors, no hidden spaces, no spiral stairwell descending into darkness. Only walls, floorboards, and the faint hum of electricity. I heard the officer's voice over the radio, calm, professional, reporting no signs of disturbance. House appears secure. No basement found. Everything normal. And yet, something was wrong. I could feel it. Something intangible clung to the house. Or maybe the memory of it. I could almost smell it through the line. Still, that scent, the decay, the rot, lingered in my mind. Subtle at first, almost imagined but undeniable. I closed my eyes, trying to shake the lingering unease. The house had been empty of anything physical, yes, but the line, the call itself, carried weight, presence, awareness. Whatever she described, whatever she had felt, it had left an imprint. "Dispatch, are you there?" A colleague asked gently, breaking my focus. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Yeah," I said softly. "I'm here." He frowned, sensing the tension radiating from me. "You all right? You sound off." "I'm fine," I whispered, but I wasn't. My chest was tight, and my mind kept returning to that line. The moans, the chains, the dragging, the way she had screamed before it ended, and the silence afterward. That silence wasn't empty. It pressed in, heavier than the sounds themselves. I thought about her, alone in that house, listening to something that shouldn't exist, reaching for her, dragging, patient, deliberate. And then the line went dead. She could have been fine, or she could have been gone, or worse. I tried to tell myself it was imagination, that maybe fear had amplified everything, that maybe old wood pipes, shadows, and echoes had created something she interpreted as chains and moans. But I knew better. I had listened to her, her words, her panic, her certainty. And I knew when something is aware, when something watches and waits, you can't simply rationalize it away. I walked the house in my mind, imagining the layout, trying to pinpoint where the presence could have originated. Kitchen, living room, closets, floors, nothing explained it. And yet, the line carried it. Her fear carried it. The dragging, the moans, they were real, even if the officers found nothing. The scent of rot, that stayed with me. Not on my clothes, not in the room, but in my memory. Subtle at first, just a trace, and then stronger, like it had seeped into my consciousness. I tried to breathe, to push it away, but it lingered. A shadow of what she had described. Something that existed only in her house, or maybe in the space between our worlds. The place where sound, fear, and presence merge. I thought about the phone, about how the line, something so ordinary, could carry it, could transmit a presence, a sensation, a terror, and how it ended so abruptly. That final click. Silence. I couldn't hear her scream anymore, but I could feel it. And the chains, the dragging, it echoed in my mind, almost as if it were still moving beneath the floorboards. I told the officers everything I could. Details. Nothing that sounded fantastical. Just what I observed in the call. And yet, even as I spoke, I could feel it pressing through the line. The silence was not empty. It was waiting, watching, patient. They didn't understand. How could they? There was no basement, no chains, no dragging, no moans, nothing but air and floorboards. But I knew better. I had heard it, felt it, and I couldn't forget. I replayed the call in my mind again and again, trying to find a clue, trying to rationalize what I had heard. But each replay brought the terror back. Her voice, trembling and raw. The chains scraping. The dragging deliberate. The moans layered and unnatural. And then the silence. That silence afterward. It wasn't quiet. It was a presence, pressing against me, stretching across time and distance, just beyond comprehension. It lingered in the office, in the monitors, in the faint hum of the equipment. A memory, yes, but alive, waiting. I could still hear if I concentrated. The faint echo of dragging, a low moan, the whisper of chains across wood. Not loud, not tangible, just enough to make the hair on my arms stand on end. A reminder that it had been there, that it was patient, that it had found her, and maybe, through the call, it had found me too. I thought about the woman, trapped in that house with an invisible basement and a presence that didn't belong, about how she had screamed, pleaded, begged to be saved, about how the line went dead and the world outside continued as if nothing had happened. And I realized something chilling. It wasn't the house that was haunted. It wasn't the floorboards or the walls. It wasn't even the air she breathed. It was the space between, the line, the connection, the shared awareness of something patient, deliberate, and waiting. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. But even as I did, I felt it, a subtle pressure, impossible to describe, a reminder that some presences cannot be confined to walls or floors, that some things can reach across lines, across distance, across perception, and linger long after the sound stops. I filed a report, gave the address, documented the call, and tried to move on. But the memory, the presence, the silence afterward, it followed me, subtle, patient, like a shadow pressed against the edge of my consciousness. I couldn't see it. I couldn't hear it, but I could feel it, faintly, like the echo of chains on old wood, dragging through darkness that didn't exist. Weeks later, I would replay the call in my mind, the details etched into memory, the way her voice shook, the way the chain scraped, the way the dragging pulled at her words, at her breath, at her very being, the silence afterward, that absolute, suffocating, waiting silence. I would never know what it was. I would never know if she survived, if the present had claimed her, if it was patient enough to wait for another call, another listener. All I knew was that I had heard it, and in hearing it, I had felt it, and it had left a mark, a shadow, a memory, a pressure I couldn't shake. Even now, when the office is quiet and the phone lines are dead, I can feel it pressing at the edges of thought, the dragging, the moans, the chains, alive, patient, deliberate. And I know, with a certainty that chills my blood, that silence afterwards is not empty. It never is. It waits. I never thought I'd be the type to call 911 over something that seemed unreal, but I did. And I can still hear my own voice shaking on the line, trying to explain something that made no sense, even as I said it. It was a full moon that night, bright white, spilling over the lake like liquid silver. I'd gone there to clear my head, to walk along the edge of the water after a long day. The town was quiet, sleepy, everyone tucked in, lights off. The kind of night where everything feels calm until it doesn't. I was standing on the shore, skipping stones absent-mindedly, watching them make ripples in the dark water. And then I saw movement. At first, I thought it was a trick of the moonlight, a shadow cast by the trees, something drifting in the water. But it wasn't. Not exactly. Figures. People maybe swimming, moving, smoothly, rhythmically. But wrong. Too fast. Too quiet. Too deliberate. Their heads barely broke the surface, their arms slicing through the water in a synchronized, unnatural pattern. And they didn't swim like humans normally do. Not like anyone I'd ever seen. I took a step back, heart starting to pound. The water rippled and glimmered, reflecting the moon, and the figures kept moving, almost watching. I tried to call out, "Hello? Are you okay?" My voice sounded small, weak, swallowed by the night. No response. I realized then that I was alone, not just on the shore, but in the town. No lights from other houses, no cars, no sound of anyone else. Just the lake, the moon, and the swimming figures. I backed away slowly, gripping my phone in my pocket. My fingers trembled as I dialed 911. The operator answered, calm, professional. 911, what's your emergency? I don't know how to explain this. I said, voice tight. There are people swimming in the lake. Or figures. I'm not sure. It's strange. Their movements not normal, and I can't see anyone else around. The line went quiet for a moment. Okay, sir. Stay on the line. Can you describe the figures? I think they're human, I said, swallowing hard. But their heads are barely above the water, arms moving fast in a pattern that doesn't make sense. They don't react to me. They just swim or float or whatever it is they're doing. I don't know. I could feel my chest tightening. The lake was still, calm on the surface, but underneath, the ripples spread like someone or something was moving with purpose. I couldn't explain why, but I felt watched. "Sir, are you in danger?" the operator asked. "I don't think so, not yet," I said, voice low, "but it's unsettling. Something's wrong. I can't explain it. There's no one else here, but I don't think it's normal. I don't think anyone else can see this." I kept talking, trying to keep my voice calm, even as my hand shook. My eyes were fixed on the water, trying to make sense of it. The figures didn't swim toward me. They didn't swim away. They just moved, silent, deliberate, like they had a rhythm I couldn't understand. "I can stay on the line, sir," the operator said. "Help is on the way. Can you describe their features? Faces, clothing?" I shook my head, though she couldn't see me. "I can't see their faces. They're shadowed, hidden by the water. I can't make out anything. Just shapes, movement, and a sense of wrongness. I don't know how to explain it." I tried to step back, but my feet sank slightly into the wet sand. I could feel the cold creeping through my shoes, the dampness chilling my bones. I could smell the lake water, the faint rot of weeds, the sharp tang of algae, and beneath all that, almost imperceptible, a metallic hint, like something decaying under the surface. "Sir, I need you to stay calm. We have officers nearby. They'll check it out. Can you describe what happens next?" I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. They're moving closer to the center of the lake. I don't know if they notice me. I can feel something, though. Watching. Waiting. Something unnatural. I can't explain it. The moonlight shimmered across the water. The figures moved in a silent, hypnotic rhythm, disappearing and reappearing as they circled. I wanted to run, wanted to leave, but my feet felt heavy, anchored by fear, anchored by curiosity, anchored by the impossibility of what I was seeing. I think I see more than one," I said, voice trembling. "There might be 5, 6, maybe more. I can't tell. The water, it's like a mirror and a shadow at the same time. I don't understand it." The operator's voice was calm, professional, patient. "You're doing fine, sir. Help is on the way. Just keep talking. Stay where you are, away from the water." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. My eyes never left the figures. I tried to make sense of them. They were synchronized, moving as if guided by some force I couldn't perceive. And yet, they weren't terrifying in the way a person drowning would be. They weren't frantic, panicked, human. They were deliberate, patient, waiting for something. A chill ran down my spine. I felt exposed, vulnerable, aware that I was completely alone. The officers might arrive soon, but what could they see? What could anyone see? The figures didn't belong to this world, not in the way I understood it. I think they know I'm here," I whispered. My voice trembled. "I can feel it. Not like someone looking at me. Like I'm inside their awareness. Like they're aware of me noticing them. And it feels heavy, pressing." The line was calm, patient. "Stay calm, sir. You're not in immediate danger. Officers are en route. Just keep talking to me." I tried to focus on her voice, on the words, on anything other than the water, but the figures moved in a way that was mesmerizing, terrifying. I couldn't look away. They weren't attacking. They weren't leaving. They just existed there in the water, beneath the moon, silently. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. Every ripple, every movement seemed deliberate, measured, unnatural. My chest tightened, a nausea creeping through my stomach. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell someone else. But I didn't. I was trapped by fear, anchored by the impossibility of it. Then, faintly, a splash. A single figure dove beneath the surface, leaving only ripples. The others followed, silently, one by one. The water went still. The reflections of the moon danced across empty ripples, and my stomach twisted. I could see nothing now. No shapes, no movement. Just the water, calm and silent, as if the figures had never existed. But I could still feel it. The sense of being watched, the deliberate awareness of something something unnatural. "Sir, are you still there?" the operator asked. "Yes," I whispered, voice shaking. They disappeared. I don't know where, but I can feel something. Watching. Waiting. "Officers will be there shortly," she said. "Just stay calm." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I wanted to believe that once the officers arrived, everything would be normal again, but I knew better. The lake hadn't been quiet because everything was fine. The lake had been quiet because the figures had chosen to retreat, to disappear, but not gone, not completely. I stayed on the line until the police arrived. I gave them every detail I could. They searched the lake, the shore, the surrounding woods. Nothing, no one missing, no footprints, no disturbance, nothing to explain what I had seen. And yet, I knew I had seen it, I had felt it. And even now, the memory lingers, the way they moved, the deliberate, silent rhythm, the awareness of my presence, the way the moonlight shimmered across them, impossibly calm and wrong. I've never gone back to that lake at night. I don't think I ever will. Even the idea of water, deep and dark under a full moon, makes me shiver, because I know they're still there, somewhere beneath the surface, watching, waiting, patient. And I know that even if no one else sees them, no one else notices, I saw them, I felt them, and that's enough to haunt me forever. It started with the faintest sound, so low and distant I almost thought I imagined it. A gentle splashing, rhythmic, almost musical, like someone was moving slowly through water in the dark. I was at my console, headset pressed to my ear, sipping lukewarm coffee, thinking it might just be the wind carrying a sound from a far-off pond. But then the chanting began, soft at first, almost whispering, words I couldn't understand, repeated syllables that weren't in any language I knew, the kind of sound that nestles in the edges of your brain before you realize it's real. I sat up straighter, scanning the incoming calls. None of the usual emergencies, no car accidents, no domestic disputes, no alarms. Just that strange noise over the line, drifting in faintly from a call I hadn't even answered yet. Or maybe it hadn't come through the line at all. Maybe it was outside. I tried to shake it off. My imagination had been fraying at the edges lately. Too many long nights. Too many hours listening to fear and panic without relief. But the sound persisted, rising and falling with the rhythm of someone or something moving through the water. 911, what's your emergency? I said, voice even professional. My stomach twisted when I realized I hadn't actually answered a call. The line was dead on the other end. Yet, the splashing continued. I leaned closer to my headset. The chanting grew a fraction louder, layered over the water. It was impossible to tell where it was coming from. No calls registered. No lines were open. No reports of visitors at the lake. Nothing. And yet there was slow, deliberate, repetitive, almost hypnotic. I whispered into the microphone, unsure why. Hello? Can anyone hear me? My own words sounded weak, swallowed by the hum of the monitors. The splashes shifted, rising in tone, almost as if something were aware of my voice. My chest tightened. My hands were clammy on the desk. I focused on the sound, trying to dissect it. There were no ripples of wind, no rain falling, no frogs, no animals. Just water moving softly, carefully, like someone was testing its surface. And beneath that, the chanting. Layered voices, not quite human, in a rhythm that seemed to echo from nowhere and everywhere all at once. I dialed in the coordinates for the nearest patrol, my fingers trembling slightly. There's something at the lake, I said to the officer on the other end, voice tight. I don't know how to describe it. Splashing, chanting. No one's reported missing. No one should be there. It's unnatural. The officer's tone was skeptical but professional. Coordinates noted. We'll check it out. Can you tell me more? I took a deep breath. Try to describe what I was hearing. It's slow, quiet, but deliberate. The water, it moves like someone is gliding just beneath the surface. And the chanting, faint, rhythmic. Doesn't make sense. No one should be there. There are no visitors. As I spoke, I realized the sound was growing, layering over itself. A second set of ripples appeared, separate from the first. A second voice joined the chant, harmonizing in some impossible way with the first. My stomach churned. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. It's like, they know I'm listening. The officer didn't respond to that. He probably thought I meant the sound would end when they arrived. I didn't know if it would. I didn't know if it could. I only knew that whatever it was patient, deliberate, and aware. I kept listening, captivated against my better judgment. The splashing intensified, but not violently, almost ceremonially, like someone was moving in patterns I couldn't understand. And the chanting, I could almost make out syllables, words perhaps, though none belonged to me. They were not a language. Exactly. They were sound meant to exist in memory and fear. The office felt colder suddenly, or maybe my body just reacted to it. I shivered, but couldn't pull away. I couldn't stop hearing it, even as I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was kids playing at night. Maybe a boat somewhere, maybe wind on reeds. But the pattern, the purpose, no wind or boat or child could move with such precise rhythm in the dead of night, on a lake that had no visitors. I whispered to the officer, voice barely audible. It's like something is under the water, watching, waiting. Maybe they know we're here. He said, firmly, stay on the line. Don't go there yourself. Help is on the way. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. My eyes kept drifting to the window beside me. The office lights reflected off the glass, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw ripples across the parking lot outside. My heart froze. Of course, there was nothing there, but my mind refused to accept it. The sound continued just as I knew it would. Patient, calculated, waiting for someone to notice. I tried to describe the rhythm of the splashes. It's not random, I said quietly. It's deliberate, circling patterns, always in the same sequence. The chanting matches it like a ceremony or a ritual. I don't know why. I don't know what it means. But it's not natural. Something is out there, and it knows we're watching. There was silence on the other end. Then the officer said, stay where you are. We'll be there soon. Just try to remain calm. Calm. My brain laughed at the word. There was nothing calm about what I was hearing. There was nothing calm about the water moving as if alive, about voices repeating syllables that weren't meant for human ears, about the patient rhythm of something aware, calculating, and deliberate in its quiet presence. I remembered the reflection of the moon on the lake earlier that night, shimmering over the water, and now I realized the reflection was wrong. Not in shape, not in color, but in movement. It didn't match the ripples I saw. It moved independently, almost like it was alive, mirroring the unseen figures in the water. My stomach twisted. I could feel it pressing at the edges of my mind, a weight that wasn't physical but insistent. I tried to describe it. It's the reflection, the light. It moves on its own, not like water, not like anything that should be there. The officer responded, sir, are you safe? Stay back from the water, please. I nodded again. Yes, I'm back from the shore. But I can't stop hearing it. The splashing, the voices, and the reflection. I know it's not normal. I know no one else can see it. But I can. I feel them under the water, watching, waiting. Minutes passed. Each one stretched longer than the last. I clutched the headset, trying to keep my thoughts anchored in reality. But the sound persisted, a chorus of faint, rhythmic splashes and chanting layered over it, almost imperceptible but present, weaving into the silence of the night. When the officers finally arrived, they reported nothing unusual. The lake was empty, undisturbed. No footprints, no movement, no evidence of swimmers. Nothing to explain the sound. Nothing to justify the panic I felt, or the sense of deliberate awareness I couldn't shake. But I knew it hadn't gone. The sound, the chanting, the weight beneath the water, it lingered in my mind. I could close my eyes and see it. Faint ripples across a silver lake under a full moon. Shadows moving just beneath the surface. Deliberate, patient, waiting for someone to notice. Even now, weeks later, I hear it sometimes in the quiet moments. The faint slap of water, a syllable I can't understand, a rhythm that isn't natural. I know it's still there, somewhere beneath the surface, moving, waiting, watching. And I know that even if no one else hears it, no one else sees it, I will never forget, because I listened, and that was enough to change me forever. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound that night. Even now, I can hear it faintly if I close my eyes. The water moving, not like waves or wind, but like something alive, something deliberate. When I called 911 again, my voice was raw, trembling. I could barely form the words. It touched me. I whispered, gripping my jacket sleeves as if that could hold me together. The operator's calm voice on the line barely reached me. I didn't care about procedure. I didn't care about protocol. I only knew that something, whatever it was, had reached out from beneath the lake, and I had felt it. I had gone there to escape the world, to walk by the shore in the moonlight and let the lake swallow my thoughts. But it had taken notice of me first. The splashes, the chanting, the ripples that danced unnaturally across the silver surface. It was patient, watching, waiting, and then finally it moved. I remember the instant I felt it. My legs pressed against something that wasn't there, something beneath the water, brushing against my ankles. Not violently, not like a creature attacking, but deliberate. A pressure, a pulling, gentle but insistent. My stomach dropped, my chest tightened. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The lake had stolen it from me before I even realized it existed. I stepped back instinctively. My shoes sank slightly in the wet sand. I could feel the dampness crawling up through the soles, cold and insistent. And the ripples. Oh God, the ripples. They spread out from where it touched me. Concentric circles, perfect, unbroken, like it wanted me to see that it had been there. I stumbled backward, gripping my phone tighter, dialed 911 as my hand shook. I could barely speak. "There's something in the lake," I said. My voice cracked. It touched me. I don't know what it is. It's live. The operator tried to calm me, asking questions I could barely answer. "Stay on the line. Are there other people with you?" "No, I'm alone," I whispered. My teeth chattered. I don't think anyone else can see it, but I felt it. Something reached out from beneath the water. I don't know why, I don't know what it wants, but it's watching me. I couldn't stop staring at the lake. The moonlight glinted across the water, calm now, perfectly still, reflecting the sky like a mirror, but I knew it wasn't gone. I could feel it beneath that placid surface. Every fiber of me knew that what I felt wasn't an accident, wasn't random. It was deliberate, patient, waiting. The ripples hadn't returned, yet their presence lingered in my mind. I could trace the shape of them in my memory. Perfect circles, moving outward in a rhythm that didn't exist in nature. And beneath them, something that had touched me and then receded like it had tested me and decided I was interesting. I tried to focus on the operator's voice, grounding myself in something human, something real. "Help is on the way," she said. "Stay back from the water. Do not go in. Just stay where you are and keep talking to me." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I crouched near the shore, eyes fixed on the still lake. The chanting had stopped, the splashes had stopped, and yet I could feel it, like a presence hovering just beneath the surface, aware of me, deliberate, silent. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time felt warped, stretched by the tension, by the knowledge that something was there that no one else could see. My hands trembled. My heart thumped in my chest like a drum echoing in an empty hall. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run, but my legs refused to move, anchored by fear, by awe, by the knowledge that I had witnessed something impossible. When the authorities finally arrived, I almost wanted to scream again. I wanted someone else to see it, to confirm that I wasn't imagining it. But when they stepped onto the shore, the lake was perfectly calm. Not a single ripple. No sound, no movement. Just the moon reflecting back at us. Innocent and serene. I tried to tell them what happened. I tried to explain the touch, the pull, the ripples, the sense of being watched. But my words sounded ridiculous in the daylight, in the presence of uniforms and flashlights. They searched the water, called for backup, checked the surrounding area. Nothing. No one missing. No disturbance. No footprints along the wet sand. Nothing to prove that what I had felt existed. And yet, I knew I had felt it. The moment it brushed against me was real. My mind would never let me forget the pressure, the deliberate touch, the sense of intelligence behind it. I remember the officer looking at me with a polite but concerned expression. "Sir, we see nothing. Are you sure you're okay?" I swallowed hard. My voice caught in my throat. I don't know. I saw ripples. I felt something under the water. It reached for me. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. He shook his head, muttering something about stress, about shadows playing tricks in the moonlight. I wanted to scream, to tell him he couldn't understand, that I wasn't making it up, but I didn't. I knew he wouldn't see it. No one else would. The officers left, reassuring me that the lake was clear, that the night had passed without incident. But I stayed a moment longer, staring at the still water, tracing the memory of the ripples in my mind. They had been perfect, too precise to be natural, and I could still feel the weight of what had touched me, pressing lightly at my skin, deliberate, aware, impossible. Walking back to my car, the lake behind me, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The reflection of the moon on the water, the stillness, the perfection, and beneath it all, something alive, deliberate, patient, waiting, watching. Even now, the memory of that night makes my skin crawl. I can close my eyes and see the water, hear the faint, rhythmic splashes, feel the touch that never left me, lingering on my ankles like a memory tattooed into my senses. No one else reported anything. No one else saw a figure swimming. No one else felt it reach out. And yet I know it was real. I know it existed. I know it touched me and retreated, leaving only the memory of ripples and the weight of something impossible. I've avoided that lake ever since. I cannot go back. Even the thought of moonlight on still water makes me shiver. I can feel it beneath the surface, even from afar, patient, watching, waiting. And I know that one day, if I'm foolish enough to return, I will feel it again. The deliberate touch, the awareness, the impossible presence beneath the water, and I will not forget it. Not ever, because I have felt it. And that is enough to haunt me for the rest of my life. The fire hit faster than I expected. One moment I was running down the stairwell, hose slung over my shoulder, heat pressing against my back like a living thing, and the next moment, smoke thickened so quickly it swallowed the light, choked the hall, and left me disoriented. My radio crackled, a faint lifeline to the roar of flames, but the connection was patchy, intermittent, scratchy. "Dispatch Engine 14, do you copy? I'm trapped on the 3rd floor. Stairwell compromised. I need..." My words broke off as coughing ripped through my lungs. The heat was unbearable, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Every instinct screamed to get out, but the smoke, it made everything sluggish. The world became a blur of orange and black. Then I heard it, a voice, not the dispatcher, not my team, a voice low and whispering, carried over the radio with perfect clarity, despite the static. "You're not alone." I froze. My heart slammed in my chest, my breath ragged. Who is that?" I croaked into the microphone. My own voice sounded alien to me, weak and trembling. The radio hissed, then silence. I replayed the words in my head. "You're not alone." Not a warning, not a call for help, just a statement. Cold, deliberate. I scanned the hallway, smoke swirling around me, hoping to glimpse a shadow, a figure, anything. But the fire's heat and the smoke reduced everything to orange haze. Nothing moved, nothing breathed but me. I forced myself to keep speaking into the radio. "Dispatch," I repeat, "Engine 14, trapped on the 3rd floor. Stairwell gone. Please respond." My voice bounced back to me distorted, like it was swallowed by the fire itself. And then, the whisper again, this time overlapping my own words. "You're not alone." I staggered back, gripping the wall, coughing, choking on smoke. I tried to tell myself it was someone on another floor, a colleague trying to mess with me. But that voice, it didn't sound human. Not fully. It had a timbre that seemed to stretch, to twist, like it wasn't bound by the radio, like it existed in the air itself. I dropped to my knees, trying to focus. The fire's heat was searing, my lungs burning, and still I could hear the faint whispering echoing through the radio. You're not alone. You're not alone. It repeated, rhythmic, insistent, and with it came other sounds. Footsteps, slow, methodical. They weren't mine. I was sure of it. I spun around, hands searching for a door, window, any escape, but the hallway seemed to stretch unnaturally, the smoke thickening like a wall of velvet. Each step I took echoed in the blaze, and yet the footsteps behind me did not match mine. They were soft, deliberate, circling, as if someone or something was tracing my movements. My fingers found the railing of the stairs, now warped and glowing with heat. I pressed myself against the wall, chest heaving. I'm here, I said, voice trembling into the radio. Engine 14. Anyone hear me? Please. The static crackled, and I thought I heard a faint laugh. Not human, not friendly. It was dry, rasping, like nails over wood, quick and fleeting. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to look behind me, but instinct overpowered reason. I turned. Nothing. Just smoke, just fire, just shadows dancing across the walls. But the feeling remained, the weight of being watched, of something moving in tandem with me, always just out of reach. I felt my knees weaken. I couldn't run. The fire blocked every exit. I couldn't hide. There was nowhere to go. The radio crackled again, louder this time. You're not alone. The voice whispered clearer, closer, almost right in my ear. My heart raced so fast, I thought it would burst. I tried to respond, tried to ground myself in logic, in training, in procedure. Identify yourself. This is Engine 14. State your position. Silence. And then a pause, filled only by the hiss of flames and the sound of movement, not the fire, not the creaking of the building. Something sliding, shifting, brushing against walls, whispering, following. I backed up slowly, fingers grazing the scorched walls. My throat burned, my chest tight. I repeated over and over, like a mantra, you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. Try to convince myself I wasn't imagining it, that my exhaustion and smoke inhalation weren't warping reality. But deep down I knew I was not alone. I tried to recall my training, stay low, find an exit, but the smoke warped my sense of direction. The hallway twisted unnaturally, longer than it should have been, corners bending where they shouldn't, shadows stretching unnaturally. I could hear the voice again, this time almost synchronized with my own breathing. You're not alone. The words, the footsteps, the laughter, it all pressing on me. My grip on the railing burned my palms. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. I gasped, inhaling smoke, tasting ash and fear. The radio crackled with static, and then a sudden clarity. You're not alone. The voice, it almost sounded like it was inside my head now. Not through the radio. Not through the air. Inside. I dropped to the floor, hands over my ears, desperate to shut it out. The flames danced higher, the heat unbearable, and yet I could still hear it. I could feel it, the presence circling me, mocking me, waiting. It knew I was trapped, and it liked it. I tried to focus on my training. Find a window. Find an exit. I whispered to myself, crawling low, the heat of fire pressing down. I saw it, a doorway, a window frame, jagged and half collapsed. I crawled toward it, each movement agony, my lungs screaming for air. But the moment I thought I had a path, I felt it again, pressure at the back of my neck, a whispering cold that had nothing to do with the fire. You're not alone. I screamed, not loud, not with sound, but with everything inside me. I crawled faster, dragging myself toward the faint light outside, praying, begging, hating that the voice followed. It echoed in my chest and my bones, in the very air around me, always there, always watching, always repeating, you're not alone. The window gave way under my weight. I fell onto the curb outside, coughing, choking, lungs burning. The night air hit me, cold and sharp, and for a moment, I thought I was safe. But even then, even outside, even with the fire behind me, I could feel it. The echo of those words clung to me. The awareness, the impossible presence. It followed me, lingering at the edge of perception. I tried to explain it to the officers who came running toward me. Something was in there, I said, voice ragged. It wasn't fire. It wasn't smoke. Something alive. Something watching. The radio voices. It said I wasn't alone. They searched the building after the fire was under control. Nothing living, nothing human, no trace beyond the scorched walls and debris. Just my own exhaustion, my own memory of it. And yet I knew, I had felt it, I had heard it, and I knew it was not gone. Even now, nights later, I can hear faint whispers if I sit in silence. A soft, rhythmic echo, like the radio in the burning building, like it followed me home, like it never left. You're not alone, and I am not. I will never be alone again. The fire had taken over everything. Hallways melted into orange haze. Stairwells disappeared into smoke, and heat pressed against my skin like a living thing. My lungs burned with every breath, each inhale tasting of ash and metal. The radio in my hand was my only tether to reality, my only connection to anyone who could understand that I was trapped in something unnatural. Engine 14, I rasped into the radio, voice hoarse. The fire, it's everywhere. I'm trapped. I need extraction. Static. Then a faint voice, not my dispatcher, not anyone I knew, whispering, "You're not alone." I froze mid-step, my boots sinking slightly in the burning carpet, my eyes scanning the hall. The shadows, thick, swirling shadows cast by the flames, moved strangely. They weren't just dark. They seemed alive. The fire licked the walls, swallowed the ceiling, but the shadows stayed untouched. They lingered, stretching across the scorched surfaces, curling in ways that shouldn't have been possible. And inside them, I thought I saw movement. Footsteps, almost imperceptible, slid across the floor behind me. Not mine, not human. I turned sharply, coughing, and the smoke choked me further, burning my eyes, turned the world into a smear of red and black. But nothing was there, just the shadows moving on their own, twisting, shifting, curling toward me. I gripped the radio tighter. Dispatch, something's in here. The shadows, they're moving. They're avoiding the fire. I don't understand. Static swallowed my words. Then the distorted screams began. Not human screams, at least not entirely. They were warped, twisted, stretched, echoing off walls that shouldn't have been able to hold sound like that. It was layered, multiple voices, screaming at once, rising and falling in impossible rhythms. My stomach turned. My legs quivered. I stumbled over debris, burning with snapping under my boots. Smoke swirling around me like thick fog. The shadows followed, and yet they never touched the flames. They avoided the heat, moving like predators that knew exactly where fire couldn't reach. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the way the light hit the walls. Maybe exhaustion and smoke were playing tricks. But my gut screamed that wasn't it. Not even close. I crawled under a collapsed beam, trying to stay low, to find a window, a door, anything that could get me out. But the shadows pressed closer, curling along the edges of debris, stretching longer, bending corners that didn't exist. I could hear the screams in my head now, not just through the radio. They were coming from everywhere, surrounding me, echoing inside my chest. My fingers found the railing of a stairwell, warped and glowing with heat. I held on, trying to climb, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The shadows didn't follow the railing. They stayed on the walls, undisturbed by my movements. And then one of them stretched out like a hand, long, thin, impossibly black, just grazing the edge of my arm. My skin tingled. My hair stood on end. I pulled back instinctively, gasping, feeling that same cold pressure I felt the night before. Only now it was alive, aware, deliberate. Dispatch! I coughed, choking on smoke. There's something here. It sits in the shadows. The fire. A scream cut me off. Distorted, guttural, high-pitched, layered. It wasn't one person. It wasn't even human. My stomach heaved. My hands trembled. I wanted to look away, to cover my ears, to deny it all, but my body refused. I had to see, had to know what was following me. The shadows writhed. They weren't still anymore. They weren't just dark shapes on the wall. They stretched toward me, elongated, curling around corners, creeping along the ceiling. Each one seemed to sense my fear, to lean closer, just enough to make me feel their presence. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I tried to move toward the fire, thinking maybe if I got closer to the heat, it would give me some protection. But the shadows never touched the flames. They twisted around them, danced around them like dancers avoiding traps. I realized then that the fire itself was irrelevant. Whatever this was, it didn't care about heat. It only cared about me. The distorted screams rose in intensity. I could feel them vibrating to the floor, through my bones, rattling my teeth. My hands gripped the railings so tightly I thought they might break. I had to get out. I had to survive. I had to. I inched forward, dragging myself toward what I hoped was a stairwell exit. Each step felt like moving through molasses. The shadows seemed to anticipate my movements, curling along the walls, curling under debris, always staying just out of reach. But the moment I stumbled, the elongated shapes bent toward me. I could feel their presence in the edges of my vision, the corners of my mind. And then I heard it, a low, almost amused whisper, not through the radio, not through the air, inside my skull. You cannot leave. I screamed, head snapping around, coughing, eyes watering. The fire roared. The shadows twisted. The distorted screams blended into a single incomprehensible sound, pressing into my mind, into my chest, into my very bones. I stumbled again, falling to my knees. I tried to call out, tried to ground myself in the dispatcher's voice. Please, I need help. My words came out as rasps, broken by smoke and panic. But the voice answered me, not the dispatcher. The shadows, whispering, laughing, bending around me. You cannot leave. You cannot leave. You cannot leave. The world seemed to stretch. Hallways lengthened impossibly. The ceiling rose and fell. Shadows moved with fluidity that defied physics. And the screams layered and multiplied, drowning out all rational thought. I forced myself to crawl forward, one hand, then the other, dragging my body toward the stairwell exit. The shadows twined around the edges of the fire, avoiding it, teasing me, whispering in the static of the radio and the edges of my mind. And then I saw it, a figure, or maybe a shape, human enough to recognize, wrong enough to terrify, standing in the center of the hall, bathed in the firelight but untouched by the flames, watching me, waiting. And the shadows, my God, the shadows bent toward it, obeyed it, move around it like it was their master. I wanted to vomit. My chest ached. My legs screamed. But I had to keep moving. Every instinct screamed to turn and run. But I was trapped, and the figure remained waiting. I reached the stairwell, feeling the heat burning my palms, my lungs screaming. But still it whispered. Inside my head. Outside my head. Everywhere. You cannot leave. I clawed at the debris, dragging myself upward, dragging my burning body toward salvation I wasn't sure existed. The shadows flinched, twisted, almost reluctant, but they didn't stop. And the figure just waited. The radio crackled again, distorted, layered. The dispatcher's voice tried to reach me. Engine 14? Are you there? Yes. I rasped, barely audible. I'm here. Static swallowed my words. Then the voice again, louder than anything else. You cannot leave. I screamed, coughing, burning, choking, dragging myself up that stairwell. The fire consuming everything except the shadows. Everything except the impossibility of that figure. Waiting and watching. I didn't know if I would survive. I didn't know if anyone could survive this. I only knew one thing. The fire had nothing to do with it. And the shadows were alive. The stairwell seemed endless. Every step I took felt like the building itself was stretching, twisting, rearranging itself just to keep me trapped. I kept my hand on the warped railing, smoke burning my skin, lungs screaming for air, and I tried to focus on the dispatcher's voice in my headset. "Engine 14, do you copy?" I tried to answer, tried to ground myself, but the world around me had become impossible. The walls, one straight and solid, were bending, pulsing, breathing. It sounds insane to say, but I saw it. The walls weren't just shifting, they were alive. Slightly, subtly at first, but then enough to make me stagger back, losing my balance. The hallway ahead curved in ways that couldn't exist, and I felt the heat behind me pressing like a living hand, chasing me upward. "Engine 14, respond," the dispatcher called again. I coughed, my throat burning, and my fingers tightened on the railing. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my chest. I can't, the walls, they faces," I gasped. Faces. Faces in the walls. Faces that weren't carved, not even painted. Faces that moved, warped, and twisted as I passed. They were pale, skeletal, and wrong. Their mouths opened silently, screaming without sound, eyes following me no matter how fast I moved. And the shadows, oh God, the shadows shifted with them. They were not just dark anymore. They were layered over those faces, merging, twisting, writhing, and mocking me. I stumbled forward, chest tight, heart hammering. The smoke and heat made my vision swim, but I couldn't stop looking. The faces multiplied as I climbed. Some appeared and vanished with a blink. Others stretched, thin and long, pulling their features toward me like they were reaching, straining to escape the wall itself. I wanted to scream, wanted to curl up and pretend it wasn't happening, but my legs kept moving. Instinct, survival, dispatch, their faces in the walls. I wheezed, gripping the radio. The building, it's alive. The walls, they're moving, twisting. I don't understand. Static swallowed my words, replaced by a faint whisper. Not the dispatcher, not human. A soft, wet, rasping sound, like nails scratching skin. "You can't leave," it said. Not once. Over and over. Layered, echoing. Inside my skull, I blinked and the hallway had shifted again. The straight stairwell I had been climbing now turned sharply to the left, then right, the ceiling dipping, the walls pulsing. It was impossible. I forced myself to breathe, to think, to focus on the fire's orange glow ahead, to any light that could guide me. But the faces, hundreds of them now, shifted with every step, sliding across the walls like reflections in a broken mirror. Each one twisted into expressions of pain, horror, despair, and some smiled. My stomach lurched. I grabbed the railing with both hands, coughing, trying to pull myself up. "I don't understand." I choked. This isn't real. It can't be real. But the building proved me wrong. I saw the walls bend closer, narrow in the hallway, stretching it longer, twisting corners that should have been straight. One of the faces leaned out from the wall, pale lips stretching impossibly wide, teeth thin and jagged. Its eyes were hollow, black pits, and it was laughing or maybe screaming, but there was no sound, only the vibration of its intent, a pressure in my chest like I couldn't breathe enough to survive. I stumbled backward, coughing violently, smoke filling my mouth and nose, but I couldn't escape it. Every step I took was mirrored by shadows along the walls, the faces stretching with me, keeping pace, leaning in, laughing silently. The fire roared behind me, a reminder that death could come in another form at any moment. But the thing in the walls, it wasn't fire. It was patient and aware. I tried the radio again, desperation clawing through my chest. "Dispatch!" The walls, their faces, they're alive. Someone, anyone, please. Static, then a soft, wet rasping again. I felt it behind my neck, cold and clammy, like someone had placed their fingers there. I spun, coughing, choking on the smoke, but the hallway was empty. Only the walls, alive, shifting, breathing, and the faces always watching, always mocking. The heat pressed against my skin, burning, yet somehow I felt the cold brush of those hollow eyes. My mind began to fray. I couldn't tell if the walls were really moving or if exhaustion and smoke were twisting my perception. But the faces, they were real, I could feel them watching, reaching. I knew it. I tried to move faster, dragging myself upward, toward a stairwell I wasn't sure even existed anymore. The building groaned. A low, deep creak, like bones bending. And with it, the faces moved, sliding along the walls. Following me, some whispered silently, mouths moving, sounds trapped behind lips. Others simply stared, eyes black, intent, aware. I reached the landing and pressed myself against the wall, gasping. Tried to ignore the faces peering from the plaster, watching every trembling movement. And then I heard it clearly, a voice, low and guttural, directly in my ear, though no one was there. You cannot leave. I stumbled back, tripping over debris, coughing. My radio slipped from my hand, clattering on the floor. I tried to grab it, but the shadows bent toward me, pressing in, curling along the walls, guiding my gaze to a new face. A child this time, pale, hollow-eyed, grinning, its mouth open impossibly wide, stretching beyond reason, and the corners of its lips, they bent unnaturally, teeth jagged, tongue flicking like a snake. I screamed, but no sound came from my throat, only a rasping, echoing in my head, repeated by the building itself. The walls were alive, the faces were real, and they weren't waiting, they were hunting. I forced myself to move again, dragging my burning body up the stairs, leaning on the warped railing, lungs screaming for oxygen I didn't have. Each step brought new faces, new horrors, some twisted in agony, some smiling, some reaching with hands that shouldn't exist. The shadows clung to them, bending around corners, pulling at the base of stairs, curling toward me in anticipation. I could feel my sanity fraying. Every instinct told me to escape, to run, to survive, but my body was weak, lungs raw, mind splintering. And yet I climbed, step by step, facing walls that breathed, ceilings that flexed, faces that whispered, laughed, and screamed without sound. The radio finally buzzed, faintly, through the static. Engine 14, are you there? I wanted to scream back, wanted to explain, wanted to warn them, but the words caught in my throat. I could barely breathe. I pressed my face against the railing, shaking, chest heaving. The walls twisted again, the faces shifting with impossible speed, and a whisper repeated in every corner of my mind. You cannot leave. I wanted to collapse, to curl up, to deny it all. But instinct, survival, fear, some part of me still clung to life. I moved, dragging myself up the stairs, past shifting walls, past faces that leaned closer, stretching impossibly toward me, their hollow eyes boring into my soul. And the whispers never stopped. You cannot leave. You cannot leave. You cannot leave. I reached another landing, and the hallway ahead stretched endlessly. The fire burned behind me, relentless, roaring, consuming everything it touched. And yet the walls ahead, they were untouched, pulsing, alive, and filled with faces that grinned, screamed, twisted, and waited. I realized then, the building wasn't just collapsing. It wasn't just fire. It was a trap, and I had wandered too deep. The walls moved. The faces watched. And I could not leave. The heat was unbearable. It clawed at my skin, burned my lungs with every desperate breath. I could feel it pressing down from above, thick smoke curling into my throat, stinging my eyes. I stumbled forward, chest heaving, trying to move toward anything that resembled an exit. But the building had changed. Again, the walls curved, the floors tilted, and the shadows were everywhere now, bending along corners, pulling at the edges, reaching, twisting. My radio squawked in my hand, a lifeline I clung to like a rope over a bottomless chasm. Engine 14, respond. The dispatcher's voice called, a calm voice, trying to ground me. But I wasn't sure I had a mind left to ground. Smoke and fire burned the edges of my senses. Faces and walls still watched, hollow eyes unblinking, mouths opening to release silent screams that reverberated through my skull. I tried to speak, but words caught in my throat. I can't. It's the walls, the shadows. Static swallowed me. Then that whisper came again, low. curling into my ears like smoke itself. You can't leave. I froze mid-step, coughs racking my chest, and my mind screamed. Not only was the building alive, it was aware. It knew me. It knew my fear, my exhaustion, my frantic heartbeat, and it fed on it. I forced my eyes along the hallway, try and see some rational path, some unburned stretch of stair or doorway, but the world around me had become unrecognizable. The ceiling's been impossibly high. The walls twisted like living things, and the floors pulsed beneath my feet, soft and unstable, as though the building itself were breathing. I remember reaching for the radio, dragging it up to my mouth. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold it. Dispatch! It's alive. The building, shadows, faces. Static. Nothing. And then the whispering, close and insistent. Inside my head as much as outside. You can't leave. You can't leave. I stumbled again, coughing, gagging, the fire roaring closer behind me. It wasn't just heat now, it was pressure, like the building was closing in, pressing me into the floor. I tried to take another step, dragging my boots through burned debris, past warped stair rails that bent around impossible angles. And the faces, oh God, the faces, they were everywhere. Hollow eyes, teeth jagged and blackened, mouths stretching wide, smiling, screaming, writhing. Some were screaming silently. Others whispered secrets I couldn't understand, all layered atop one another, driving me toward panic I couldn't escape. I tripped over a fallen beam, hands scraping against splintered wood, lungs screaming for air. I forced myself up, dragging forward, every nerve ending on fire. The shadows pressed closer. The faces leaned from the walls, and I swear I saw some of them moving independently, crawling along corners, following me, waiting for a moment when my back would be turned. The radio hissed again, a distorted voice, like my dispatcher mixed with every scream I had heard tonight. Engine 14, are you there? I rasped, shaking, tears stinging my eyes. I can't. It's the walls, the shadows. Static swallowed me again. Then the whispering returned, louder, clearer, pressing into my chest, crawling down my throat. You can't leave. You can't leave. You can't leave. I sank to the floor, smoke choking my lungs, chest heaving violently. My mind felt like it was fraying, unraveling in the heat and terror. The building pulsed beneath me, walls breathing, floors shifting, shadows stretching. And above it all, that voice, inside me, outside me, everywhere, the words repeated endlessly. I couldn't tell if it was real or if I had finally broken. I tried crawling, dragging myself toward a door I thought I saw, a rectangle of light that promised escape. But the hallway had shifted. The door wasn't there. Only more walls, bending, pulsating. Faces pressed against the plaster, mouths opening silently, eyes wide and hollow. One face leaned closer, impossibly close, and I felt its gaze crawl across my skin, cold and heavy. My chest heaved. My hands clawed at the floor, desperate for traction, for something, anything to hold on to. Dispatch! I whispered, voice trembling, barely audible over the roar of fire and the unearthly chorus of shadows and faces. I can't, it's... The whisper answered me before I could finish. You can't leave. I cried out, but no sound came. Only the pressure, the weight, the voices layered over my own heartbeat. My radio fell to the floor with a clatter, static hissing across the line. I tried to reach it, but shadows curled along the floor as though alive, restraining me, keeping me rooted in place. Faces twisted closer, stretching out of walls, crawling, leaning in. Hollow eyes pressed into my vision. My throat closed up, every breath a battle. The fire raged behind me, consuming the building, burning everything in its path. But the shadows weren't touched. The faces weren't touched. They were immune, alive, and aware. And I was trapped between them. I remember thinking, for the first time, that I might not survive this. Not the fire, not the heat, not even the walls, but the waiting, the patient, aware, inevitable presence of whatever this was. It didn't need to burn me. It only needed me to witness it, to feel its impossible power. And then the whispering grew louder, as if the building itself had joined in. You can't leave. You can't leave. You can't leave. You can't leave. My hand scrabbled at the floor, burned, bleeding, shaking. I tried to drag myself forward, toward anything, toward escape, but the hallway stretched endlessly, twisting impossibly, walls bending in ways that should have broken reality itself. I could see more faces now, hundreds of them, pressed into walls, twisting, screaming silently, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Some stared, some laughed, some cried, all reaching for me, feeding on my terror. I forced myself to breathe. Despite the heat, despite the smoke, despite the pressure pressing down from all sides. My chest burned, my throat was raw, my vision blurred, and still the whispering persisted, inside my head and everywhere around me. You can't leave. You can't leave. You can't leave. I slumped against the wall, trying to push myself upright, trying to force another step, and realized I was alone. Not alone in the building, never alone, but alone in a way that felt infinite. The dispatcher's voice was gone from the radio, swallowed by static. My own voice was gone, swallowed by my fear. The shadows, the faces, the building itself, they were all I had. The whispering pressed in, repeating the same words over and over, until it became a chant, a lullaby, a curse. You can't leave. You can't leave. You can't leave. I tried to scream. My throat ached. No sound emerged. Only the words, the weight, the shadows, the faces, the fire I could never reach. My body burned. My lungs screamed. My mind teetered on the edge of collapse. And then silence. Not true silence. The fire still roared behind me, and the shadows still moved along the walls, but the whispering paused, hovering like a blade above my head. And in that pause, I understood this was it. There would be no rescue. There would be no escape. You can't leave, the voice whispered one last time. Not through the radio. Not outside my head. Inside. Deep inside. The line went dead. Dispatchers would later play back the recording. Later. They would hear my rasping breaths, my coughing, the distortion of the fire, and then, faintly and possibly, my words mirrored back, and then the whisper, layered over everything, repeating, "You can't leave, you can't leave, you can't leave." They never called me again. I never called back. And even if I had survived the fire, even if my body had escaped the flames, that voice would follow me, always, waiting. I don't know what I saw. I don't know what is alive in those walls, in those shadows, in the twisting impossibility of the building. I only know one thing. When it whispers, when it says, "You can't leave," it means it, and there is no leaving.